Okay, so hi everyone. I'm going to call council to order at 4:33 p.m. It is Wednesday, August 11th, 2021. And before we get started, I would just like to acknowledge that today I am calling in from the traditional and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, which includes the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, and Katzie nations. These lands are colonially known as Burnaby Mountain. I am privileged to live here on these lands. And, you know, I would also just like to recognize that these are the lands by which I am calling in from at this present moment. But because we are virtual and all of us are calling in from different locations, it's important to individually recognize all of us, the lands by which we're occupying now, and recognizing our role as settlers and the mandate that we have to be standing in solidarity with Indigenous communities. We'll begin tonight's meeting as we usually do with a roll call of attendance, and I'll call on each member of council by their position. And if you could please share your name, pronouns, and access needs, that would be fantastic. Please be ready to unmute yourself as we go down the list, just so we can get through this as soon as possible and get to our business of the day. Additionally, it would be amazing if folks could turn on their cameras if possible, just so we can see some faces. We will begin then with student union representatives. And I'll start us off with archaeology.
Hi, my name is Damon. My pronouns are he and him. My accessibility needs are met. I am feeling a little rough around the edges due to having a final this morning and a final tomorrow. So I'm going to keep my camera off.
No worries, Damon. Thank you for letting us know. Bachelor of Environment.
Hello, everyone. My name is Evan McPhee. My pronouns are he, him, and all my access needs are met.
Behavioral Neuroscience.
Hi, everyone. My name is Arthi, pronounced she, her, and hers, and all my access needs are met. Thank you.
Biology.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicholas. My pronouns are he and his, and all my access needs have been met.
BPK.
Hi everyone, my name is Kashish. My pronouns are she, her. I will be keeping my camera off for the day, and it will be very loud in the background because I have a lot of kids at my house and I have to leave at 6:30 today. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. We have next chemistry.
Hi everyone, my name is Wen, pronouns are she, her, hers, and all my access needs are met. Thank you.
Cognitive science. Cognitive science, are you present? Communications.
Hello everyone, my name is Ashran. My pronouns are he, him, his, and all my access needs are met.
Thank you. Computing science. Oh, they are you here?
Yes. Hello, my name is Shiva. I'm she, her. This is my first meeting. I'm replacing the president who's unable to come for the first half.
Okay. Are you an alternate then for this meeting?
Yes, for the first half.
Thank you. Criminology. Oh, they have submitted their regrets. My bad. Data science. Oh, they have submitted their regrets as well. Economics.
Hello. This is Mahinder. All my access needs are met. Thank you.
Thank you. Education.
Hi everyone, my name is Jin Choi. My pronouns are she and her, and all my access needs are met. Thank you.
Engineering science.
Hi, my name's Sarah. My pronouns are she, her, and all my access needs have been met. Thank you.
English.
Hi, my name is Liz. My pronouns are she, they, and my access needs are met. But I'll probably keep my mic off since I have the windows open and it's very loud. but I'm here and I'll be in the chat.
No worries. Environmental science.
Hi, my name is Chloe. My pronouns are she, her, and all my access needs are met. Thank you.
Thank you. Film.
Hi, my name is Amelia Simard. My pronouns are she, they, and all my access needs are met.
Thank you. French. GSWS.
Hey everybody, my name's Devin, she, her, hers pronouns. My needs are met, but I'm feeling a little under the weather today, so if I turn off my camera.
No worries, Devin. Hope you feel better. Geography.
Hi, my name is Monica, pronoun she, hers, and all my needs are met. Thanks.
Thank you. Global Asia Studies. Global Asia Studies, are you present? Health Science.
Hi, my name is Joselle. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and my existing needs are met, but I'll probably keep my camera off.
Thank you. History. History, are you present? Okay. You do Indigenous Studies. Ayat.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Felix, pronouns he, him, and they, them. I may need to take a step out at 6:30, but then I should be back at 7. And then my Zoom, whenever I hit the video button, it freezes and sometimes crashes after 2 minutes of being frozen. So I'll keep it off for today and hope to fix it for the future. Thank you.
No worries. Yeah, Zoom sucks. International Studies.
Hi everyone, my name is Aaliyah, my pronouns are she, hers, and all of my access needs are currently met. I'm the alternate for the ISSA today, and I'll also be keeping my camera off because I have my fan pointed directly at me, and I don't look super camera ready.
Thank you, Aaliyah. Labor Studies.
Sorry, yeah. Hello, my name is Justin Chen. My pronouns are he, him, and my accessibility needs are met.
Thank you. Linguistics.
Hi everyone, my name is Michaela and my pronouns are she and her, and all my access needs are met today.
Thank you. Math.
Hi, I'm Ben Tischler. My pronouns are he, him, his, and all my access needs are met.
Megatronics.
Hi, my name is Riley McWilliams. Pronouns are he, him, and all my accessibility needs are met.
MBB.
Hi, I'm Avni. All my pronouns are she, her, hers, and all my access needs are met. Thank you.
Operations Research.
Hi, my name is Ash. Pronouns are he, him, his, and all my access needs have been met.
Philosophy.
Hi, my name is Tony, he, him, his, and all my access needs are met.
Physics. Physics, are you present? Political science.
Hello, my name is Helen. My pronouns are she, her, hers. All my access needs are met, and I'll be keeping my camera off.
Psychology.
Hi everyone, my name is Tiffany. My pronouns are she, they, and all my access needs are met. My laptop is prone to overheating, so when that happens, I'll be turning my camera off.
No worries. Science Undergrad Society.
Hi, I'm Sharik. I'm the alternate for SS today. My pronouns are he, him, his, and all my access needs are met, except that my camera hasn't arrived for my new computer yet, so I won't be able to turn it on today.
Thank you, Sharik. I do also just want to note, I see Zaid is on the call too as well. There is a policy that when the counselor and their alternate are both present in the same meeting, that the vote of the counselor takes precedent. So how is that going to work for this meeting? Zaid, are you staying for the whole thing?
No, I'm just here for the amendment.
Okay. So we'll move on to SAS.
Hi everyone, my name is Akam. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and all of my access needs are met. Thank you.
Thank you. Sasu. Sociology, are you present? Software systems.
Hello, everybody. My name is Shashank Dhanalapati. My pronouns are he, him, his. All my accessibility needs are met. Thank you.
Thank you. Statistics.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Chung. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and all my access needs are met. But I do have to leave at 6:30 today because I have a final exam. Thank you.
Sustainable Energy Engineering Student Society. Sustainable Energy. Theater Student Union. Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Samantha. My pronouns are she, they. And all my access needs are met, except just moved somewhere new and still figuring out the Wi-Fi situation. So maybe dropping off and in, and Zoom is glitchy. Thanks. Cool, thank you. That was in the chat, by the way. World Lit.
Hi, my name is Kayla, pronouns she, her, hers. I'm the alternate for today, and my accessibility needs have been met.
Awesome. Thanks, Kayla. And we'll move into constituency group representatives. Firstly, First Nation Student Association. NSA, are you present? ISA, is there a rep from ISA, International Student Advocates?
Hi everyone, my name is Chi. I'm an alternate for FITSA from now onwards because she has recently been resigned. My pronouns is she, her, hers. All my access needs have been met. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Soka.
Hi everyone, my name is Linda. All my access needs are met and my pronouns are she, her.
Thank you. Women's Center Collective.
Hi, my name is Nisha. My pronouns are she, her, and all of my access needs are met.
Thank you. And we'll move into affiliated student groups with Student Athlete Advisory Committee, rather.
Hi, my name is Paul. All my accessibility needs are met, and my pronouns are he, him, but I will be keeping my camera off today. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. We'll move into the executive committee, and firstly, we have the president, which is me. Hi, everyone. My name is Gabe. My pronouns are he, him, his. And my only access need today is that I just moved into my new place this weekend, and this is the first kind of big meeting I've done on my new Wi-Fi. So it's kind of a shot in the dark here. So if I do drop out, Devin, I might ask you to chair for whatever period of time it takes me to get from my place in university to the student union building where the Wi-Fi is reliable. And we'll move to the VP Internal and Organizational Development.
Hi everyone, my name is Corbett. Pronouns are he, him, his, and access needs are met. Thank you.
Thanks, Corbett. VP Finance and Services.
Hi everyone, my name is Almis. Pronouns she, her, hers. All my access needs are met. I'm doing a take-home final today, so I will need to leave at 8:30, even if the meeting extends. Thank you.
Thank you, Almis. VP University and Academic Affairs.
Hey everyone, my name is Serena. My pronouns are she, they. For access needs, I'm just doing a lot at the moment, so a bit distracted, taking care of my dog, and so if you hear any background noise, it's probably that, and I'll keep my camera off so I'm not too distracting.
Thank you, Serena. Good luck with that. VP External and Community Affairs.
Okay, hello, it's Matt. My pronouns are he, him, his. My accessibility needs. I did have some family matters that came up, so I'm going to stay as long as I can. But when I have to leave, then I will just type in the chat just to notify everyone. But it's good to see everybody.
Thank you, Matt. The VP of Equity and Sustainability is on a leave of absence currently and will not be attending the meeting. Next is VP Events and Student Affairs. Oh, that's right. The VP Events and Student Affairs has let me know that they'll be logging in at 5 due to a final exam that she has that is due at 5 p.m. So we will move on to society staff, beginning with operations organizer.
Hi, everyone. Oh, is my camera not on? Sorry, hold on. Oh, sorry. Hi, everyone. I'm Aisha. My pronouns are she, her, hers. My access needs are somewhat met. I'm in a lot of chronic pain. But yes, that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Aisha. And I hope it's not too bad. Board organizer.
Hi, everyone. This is Ella. Pronoun she, her, hers. All of my access needs are currently met. Thank you, Gabe.
Thank you, Ella. Administrative assistant.
Hi, I'm Christina. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and all my access needs are met.
Thank you. Communications coordinator.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ilham. My pronouns are she and hers, and my access needs are met. However, I will be stepping out around 7:30 today.
Thank you, Ilham. And policy research and community affairs coordinator.
Hi, everyone. My name is Biri. Pronouns she, her, has. All my access needs are met, but I will keep my camera off because my roommate is moving around a lot.
No worries. Thank you. And are there any other society staff on the line with us today? Okay, so that, Abby, did you have something to say?
I had a point of order for after the roll call.
Okay, technically, because you're not a counselor, you can't raise a point of order, but what's it?
Global Asia Studies kind of got phased out of SFU and canceled, so it's gonna be kind of hard for them to have a representative at council because they have no students to represent.
That is good to know. Let the record reflect that and the future agendas to reflect that. I did not know that. Thank you, Abby. We will move then. Well, first of all, did anyone get missed in the roll call of attendance? Any members of council? Anyone who might have joined late? Okay, seeing none, then we'll move on to section number 4 of today's agenda, which is the consent agenda. And I'll read the motion now, the motion be it resolved to adopt the consent agenda by unanimous consent. There are 5 motions under the consent agenda. 2 of them are to receive and file minutes from council and committees. There are 2 motions to ratify regrets, and there is 1 motion to rectify an error made in a previous committee appointment. Are there any objections to the motions contained in the consent agenda? Okay. So the consent agenda, seeing no objections on its contents, is carried by unanimous consent. And we'll move on to item number 5, which is the adoption of the agenda, 5.1, and I'll read the motion now. Be it resolved to adopt the agenda as presented. Is there a mover for this motion? Matt moves. Is there a seconder?
Jeremy, I at second.
I heard Jeremy first, so Jeremy seconds. And yeah, the floor is open for any questions, comments, or amendments to be put forward on the agenda. Yeah, Zaid, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. As you're probably expecting, I'd like to move to amend the agenda to include the following motion. Should I read it out or should I just paste it in the chat here?
Just paste it in the chat, please.
All right, I'm moving to amend the agenda to include the following motion after item 9.1, SFSS Health and Dental. This is the first half.
Where did you say you'd like that to be?
After item 9.1, Health and Dental.
Okay, anything else from folks? Okay, just in full transparency, this motion was initially submitted to the agenda, but it did have to get bumped because the agenda is quite packed and I was worried about going overtime. But of course it is up to the democratic vote of council to decide whether to put this on, as long as you want to stay and continue to debate motions. So yeah, are there any other amendments that are on that council would like to consider today? Okay, so Zaid, are you moving to amend the agenda to do that?
Yep.
Is there a seconder?
BBK seconds. Oh, BBK can go, it's okay.
Okay, Kashish seconds. Is there any discussion on the amendment put forward? Okay, Zaid? Or sorry, Devin, you're first.
Yeah, maybe Zaid can kind of answer some of the questions or concerns that I have. And it's not that I think my DSU or myself don't want the maximum amount of space that we can have for students. Rather, I'm just concerned about the idea of maybe promising space that none of us have seen, nor are aware that there is space to give. And I can't speak to it. I'm not the building manager, but I personally haven't seen the sub. It's kind of this mystical being to me. And so I would be concerned about none of the counselors really having the space to see the space and then making these decisions, as well as the building manager not being here and all that kind of stuff. I just feel like I don't have enough information, and I would like to maybe have this discussion when I have had the chance to have all that information, or the offer of the tours that were suggested by the execs. So maybe Zaid, you can talk maybe about those concerns, but that's where I'm at right now.
Zaid, did you want to respond to Devin's question?
Sure. So I guess regarding the student union building, with the current allocations, I guess I just want to pose like the question just to everyone that with I guess the building itself with all the rooms that we have.
Sorry, I need to jump in for a minute, just as I guess a point of order. We are currently voting on just adding this to the agenda. So if we're having a discussion on whether or not we want to consider it today, that is what's on the floor. However, we're not currently debating the contents of the motion.
Yeah, I'm not debating the contents of the motion.
Okay, just wanted to be clear.
I'm just clarifying that with all of the other allocations that have been made in the building, they've been done without people actually having been in the building, since it wasn't even open or finished when we did designate a lot of the other spaces. And also when we go through the motion, if Gabe is willing, we can also go through the sub-floor plans so students can or counselors, you guys are students as well, can get a look at the relative size of the spaces that we are asking and the other spaces that currently are allocated within the sub. Thank you.
I see Sharik is up next, but I do have to give priority to counselors to speak first. So I'm going to go with Corbett, and then Sharik, I will bump back to you.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with what Gabe said in the email, in the sense that we have a very packed meeting that we have, especially in the in-camera session, that we don't know how long it's going to take. It is going to be a lot to it. And due to people having finals and stuff, I really don't want the meeting to go late, if possible. And I also, after looking at the motion and talking with Zaid and stuff, I don't think this is actually a rush that needs to be rushed, that we can delay by 2 weeks, give time for people to go and have a tour, because again, the sub will be opening on that August 23rd for anyone to literally come up at any time within the operating hours. And also before that, if understandably you don't necessarily want to just, if you want to if you're focused on finals or whatnot, that's why I give a 2-week notice. Like I said, I think there's time for us to delay this to the next official council meeting.
Thank you, Corbett. Sharik?
Yeah, thank you, Gabe. I just want to say the reason mainly for considering this today is, again, like Zaid said, a lot of the allocations in the past have been done without seeing the space. And I actually was given a tour, and the reason that we actually brought this forward is because I was shown around the place yesterday. And the building manager assured me that anything would be possible, assuming that the council would be willing to vote in favor of this motion. So we know there is space because the building manager has said that there's potential space for it to be considered.
Tony, you're up next. Or I apologize, Nisha, you have a direct response, and then Tony can follow up.
I just wanted to ask a quick question because you mentioned that you talked to the building manager and that there was space. Did they mention at all how long they're going to hold that, or is it a possibility if we postpone this motion that some other group or the space is just going to get used in another way if we don't act fast enough? Is that a possibility?
I can answer that question. So right now, the space is currently allocated as bookable space, and that's not going to change between now and 2 weeks from now. Tony, you can go next.
Yeah, so I want to voice my support for this motion just for today, because I feel as though if we kind of start deciding on allocation of spaces after the sub kind of opens up, it might pose some administrative woes, because people will start booking spaces, and then we gotta change stuff up, and it seems like it might be a bit more complicated once the sub opens up afterwards.
Thank you, Tony. I do have a bit of a point of information in that regard. Although the sub is open August 23rd, the week of August 23rd, services are not at full capacity yet, so that also includes room bookings. So room bookings will not actually start until August 30th. Sorry, I've lost my speakers list here. Jess, you're up next. Or I apologize, Akam, it's you first.
Yes, yeah. I just wanted to speak to why we would also like for this motion to be considered today. I think part of it is that we are preparing right now for a full return to campus. And part of that is for DSUs to continue having their meetings, or to begin actually having their meetings in person. I know that SAS has actually decided that we're going to be giving out this space to other DSUs for them to hold their meetings during a specific amount of time. And for us to be able to do so, we do need to prepare for that in advance. We're going to need to be preparing for other DSUs to book that space in advance, and also determine the times that they'll be having those spaces. I do know also that we're going to need to prepare MOUs, and we're also going to need to sort of work around that. And I think that will take a little bit of time before September. I'm not sure exactly if we would be able to do that if this motion were to be delayed until the August 25th meeting.
Jess, you're up next.
So I am currently working on these room booking guidelines with Shelly that still have to be approved and released to all of you folks. So we'll know more. We just need more time. It'll be concrete when it's ready, like within the next few weeks, but it will happen. So all of those questions and those logistics are in the works as well.
Jeremy.
Speaking in support of this motion, and also a question for you as well, Gabe, if we do designate these spots for the groups, it is possible in a future council meeting to relocate or take them away, correct?
It's not necessarily good practice though.
Yeah.
In my opinion, to give space and then take it away.
But more of a question would be like, oh, if these rooms did accidentally end up taking up too much room and there were other spots within the building, if there could be that adjust in the future, just because I think that's something that most people would probably be concerned of right now.
Okay. Devin, do you have a point of order?
Just that I think that's a better question for if this passes to the actual agenda, and this is a discussion about adding it as an amendment, not the nature of the motion itself. So I just want to make sure we're staying on track because we have quite a long meeting today. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Devin, for that point of order. Is there any discussion? Zaid, you're next.
Well, in the interest of time and seeing nobody else has listed, I'm going to just call the question here so we can just get forward with things.
Okay, Zaid's called the question. Is there a seconder?
Devin seconds.
Devin seconds. In the interest of time, just so we can move on, I'll be seeking unanimous consent on the motion. If you would like to dissent or just to recap, calling the question just means ending debate, and we have to vote on that in order to move on. Is there any seeking unanimous consent on the motion? I'm asking if everyone is in favor of moving forward. Okay, so the motion to call the question has been carried unanimously, and we'll move to the question at hand, which is amending the agenda to include the motion that Zaid has put forward. I am going to do this by roll call vote because I'm assuming it's going to be contested. So let's get on with that. We'll start with archaeology.
We're going to vote no. We think it's okay for it to be on the 25th.
Bachelor Environment.
Bachelor Environment is voting in support of this motion. We believe that it would be more logically and organizationally efficient to put it before the sub opens.
Okay, and just a point of order. When I ask for your vote, I'm just asking for your vote. Please save your comments because the time for discussion has lapsed, considering the question has been called. Behavioral neuroscience.
Behavioral neuroscience votes for the motion.
Biology.
Biology votes in favor.
BPK.
BPK votes in favor.
Chemistry.
Chemistry votes in favor.
Cognitive science. Communications.
CMSU votes in favor.
Computing science.
Votes in favor.
Criminology. Oh, not here. Data science is not here. Economics.
Economics votes in favor.
Education.
Yeah, in favor.
Engineering science.
In favor.
English.
In favor.
Environmental science.
In favor.
Film.
In favor.
French. Not here. GSWS.
Against.
Geography.
In favor.
Health science.
Abstain.
History. History, are you casting a vote? Indigenous studies. IAT.
In favor.
International studies.
In favor.
Labor studies.
In favor.
Linguistics.
In favor.
Math.
In favor.
Megatronics.
Abstain.
MBB.
In favor.
Operations research.
In favor.
Philosophy.
In favor.
Physics.
In favor.
Political science.
In favor.
Psychology.
In favor.
Science Undergrad Society.
In favor.
SAS.
In favor.
Sociology and Anthropology. Software Systems.
In favor.
Statistics.
In favor.
through Sustainable Energy Engineering Student Society. Sorry, what was that?
In favor.
In favor. World Lit, or sorry, Theater First.
In favor.
World Lit.
In favor.
FNSA. SOCA.
Against.
Women's Center.
In favor.
Student Athlete Advisory Committee. SAC. We'll move on to the Executive Committee. The President will be voting in favor. VP Internal.
Against. Oh, sorry. My apologies. This is in calling the question or the actual adding to the motion?
The actual adding the motion to the agenda.
Against.
VP Finance.
Against.
University and Academic Affairs.
In favor.
VP External.
In favor.
VP Events.
In favor.
Okay, let me just tally the vote. Give me about 15 seconds. Okay, so my count is that on this vote, the yes votes are 37, the no votes are 6, and there are 2 abstentions. So the motion is carried. The amendment to the main motion, rather, is carried. And so with that, we'll move to the main motion, which is at this point, we'll read, be it resolved to adopt the agenda as amended. And I would like to make one more amendment to the agenda. This is just to include some regrets that I got after the agenda was sent. So I would like to move to amend the agenda to include regrets from, well, Jess, are you staying for the meeting? Because you've submitted regrets, but you're here.
I'm done my final. I'm here. I'm staying.
Okay, so I'll add regrets from Warren, Deanna, and Ryan. Is there a mover for the, and this will go directly after this motion. So between adoption of the agenda and report from committees. Is there a seconder for this?
Geography seconds.
Geography seconds. Any discussion? Okay, so we'll put the amendment to a vote, and I'll be seeking unanimous consent on this motion, this amendment to the main motion. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent. Okay, and again, please remember, if you would like to dissent or abstain from a unanimous consent motion, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom. But I am seeing none, so the motion is carried. And we'll move back to the main motion once again, which is be it resolved to adopt the agenda as amended. Any last considerations on the adoption of the agenda? Okay, we'll put this to a vote. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent. This is the main motion we're voting on now. Okay, this is carried. Carried unanimously. And so we'll move into the consideration of those regrets that we just added. So be it resolved to ratify regrets from Warren, Deanna, and Ryan. Is there a mover for the motion?
Ashish moves.
Ashish moves. Is there a seconder?
Matt.
Matt seconds. Thank you. Any discussion on the regrets? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent? Okay, that is also carried unanimously. And so with that, we'll move into report from committees, and we'll begin with 6.1, which is the executive committee report. And so do I have someone from the executive committee who's screen sharing? Thank you. So if you want to go to the first slide. So I'll report on what the last meeting was like as executive committee chair, but there was no meeting since the last report that the executive committee gave to council. So I have nothing to report on in terms of actions taken from the executive committee. However, I will note that our next meeting will be held on Tuesday, August 17th, 2021, and our meetings are held 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., at least until the end of the summer semester. And they alternate they are held bi-weekly, and they alternate between on weeks where council meetings are not held. So what have I been up to? So I have been back from my leave of absence for a week and a half now. So I've been, well, the first week I was back was kind of just, actually, let me back up a bit. Again, executives, you each have 3 minutes each to do your report. Any more than that, I will cut you off just because we do have a packed agenda today. So yeah, there's that. Anyway, I'll start my timer too to hold myself to that standard. When I got back from my leave of absence, it was on August 2nd, and Corbett and I did a massive catching up session when I got back, just to make sure that I was all caught up on everything that happened while I was gone for those 2 weeks. And I just want to give a shout out to Corbett, as he was acting president. And from the looks of it, he did a really, really good job. So thank you, Corbett. The executive committee did have a bit of an informal meeting to discuss options for our health and dental plan. Some recommendations that are coming up to council as it pertains to changes that we are recommending to the health and dental plan that we'll be considering later on in new business. John, Corbett, and I, well, we had one long, singular conversation. We do, however, as we are all in the building in the student union building most days, we kind of just catch up in that way. However, we did have a long discussion regarding the sub opening and kind of what is needed from here on out and getting it prepped for August 23rd opening date. Nextly, I attended a student safety group meeting alongside Serena and Marie. The student safety group is a meeting that meets on a semesterly basis. It's chaired by SFU's Chief Safety Officer, Mark Lalonde, and it's essentially a place where we can bring forward concerns related to student safety on campus. And this meeting particularly was surrounded around the fall return. And so we asked a lot of questions around, what is SFU's plans for fall return if the Delta variant gets out of control? What are SFU's plans to mandate masks, understanding that, vaccines don't necessarily stop transmission of the Delta variant, even if you are fully vaccinated? These questions are what we continue to ask the SFU administration. I've had multiple check-ins with our staff. I met with our student advocacy coordinator, Trish Everett, who continues to, was recently hired this year and is soon looking forward to starting up her services as an advocate for students, and has already, I believe, started taking on some cases. I had an onboarding session with my associate vice president, Kirtana, and I'm really looking forward to working with her in that role. What's been taking up a lot of my time has been collective agreement bargaining. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, basically all day has been spent bargaining. and we are talking about that later in an in-camera session as well. Continue to have check-ins with Ella, who's our board organizer, and I've been attending multiple meetings such as the executive committee, the joint health and safety committee, and I also got to attend an oversight committee meeting where we talked about things like work reports, semester reports, and reporting structures in general. So with the 3 seconds that I have left, I will relinquish the floor and pass it off to the VP Internal and Organizational Development, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. So, while I was still acting president, for the last few days, I met with SFU to discuss the stadium contribution agreement. This is an agreement that we have with SFU about how much funds we give them and in what and when, basically a schedule. We're giving them $10 million over, I think, 13 or so years. And they're also contributing $250,000 a year to us. No, sorry, $25,000 a year to us for 13 years to give, basically go to a student hardship bursary that we have to develop. I wanted to shift the payment schedule by 1 year because there's a delay in the sub start, and it would just make it easier so we didn't have to make 3 years of payments in one shot. We're still discussing that. And hopefully have an update and a new agreement to submit to council in the future. Matt, and Ella, the board organizer, met with Alison Gu, the newly elected Burnaby City Councillor, to learn about her goals, talk about the SFE gondola, and other issues around students, like student affordability and other issues in Burnaby. Checked in with the sub-opening communications working group, talked about press, our idea that it might be a press strategy. That went further with other meetings and emails. Met with the admin coordinator hiring committee, which I was leading, to finalize the job descriptions and launch the job posting. This position is a full-time, kind of like admin assistant, but full-time instead of a part-time person. Met with Gabe to catch up, come up with what occurred over his leave of absence, which was a lot. Attended a special exec meeting, discussed some past motion related to health and dental plan. Attended a oversight committee to talk about leave of absence policy and my intent to work with the governance committee to add more options, fit more types of leave, like for instance, bereavement, helping care for a sick family member, things like that you'd see in other parts of like jobs and such. Because we're not an employee, we don't have that, so we have to we'd have to develop our own policies around this. I ran also a council training session for our new econ council representative. And me and Gabe and Aisha and Matt, we restarted the bargaining sessions with QP to negotiate, and we've been doing that for the last 3 days this week. So, thank you.
Thank you, Corbett. Next, we have the VP Finance and Services. Almas, you have the floor when you're ready.
Okay, just 1 second. So the biggest thing has been student care for the past couple of weeks. We had the final renewal analysis report with Bahare, who's the representative from student care. Again, we had some recommendations on their end, but we do not like a couple of them because I feel like they do not align with what the students wanted in the previous survey that we have. If anyone wants to see that survey, they can email me and I can send them the results. And then we've also been planning for the referendum in spring 2022. And because Corbett has been handling this in the past, I've taken some time to go over the major take-home messages that student care has given us, or the major suggestions that they've given us. And we're seeing how we can talk to external parties or maybe people that we've been in touch with and see what are their thoughts on these suggestions and if they have something else to propose to us. And after thinking for quite a while to make sure that we're not rushing through the process and we're doing the best for the coming years, we for now decided to go with the fully funded model, and we do not have to care about the deficits anymore. We just have to pay them. And in the meantime, till spring 2022, we'll have ample of time to have multiple discussions with council members and take any external suggestions if we will need, and come to a consensus, and then we will see how we want to move ahead. Second one is the monthly check-in with Gabe. This was before he went on his leave of absence, about the key tasks, what I'm planning for the upcoming months, my capacity, the external audits. Also an update on the external audit. It's now almost complete. They've sent us a couple of documents, not really a report, just some documents and suggestions. So I will be presenting it to you guys when I have the complete report. Third one is the emergency response plan for sub. Jess was the main person who was taking care of this arena, and I joined the meeting to add some suggestions for different emergency codes, and also talked about the accessibility needs and opinion of BIPOC folks. FAST will be meeting on Thursdays finally. I'm super sad that we do not have any at-large members, but I think we should be having some starting fall. I'm also working with SFU on the bullying and harassment case manager hiring committee. There were about 30 applications. We were able to shortlist 10 people, and now we're planning to shortlist 3 people based on their relevant experiences and education as well. And we have another meeting on the 23rd of August, I believe, and we will have 3 people, and then we'll continue with the interviews in September. I'm also on another hiring committee, but that's quite not started yet. And when we have it set up, I will give you updates on that as well. The rest is a couple of other meetings that I attended. And work reports, I've started compiling a spreadsheet about the hours late, incomplete, or missing submissions. For the first 2 months, that is May and June, I've decided not to penalize anyone because I know we did not have a very good system set in place for submissions, and some of the people were fitting into their roles. There were a lot of resignations. A lot of people came in, filled in those roles. So we're sort of keeping that aside for now, but starting July, we will be penalizing people. And unfortunately, I've had like 50% of the people submitting late work reports this time. I hope we can sort that in future. But now, as I have exact timings, so I'll just suggest everybody to get started on their work reports as soon as possible, because I honestly do not want to penalize people for such little things, but I will be bound to if it's done repetitively. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Almas, for your reports. Next is the VP External and Community Affairs.
Is everybody able to hear me okay?
I can hear you great.
Perfect. Okay, cool. 2 seconds. Sorry. All right, does my time start now as soon as I put my glasses on? Because now I can read.
As soon as you start speaking.
Cool. All right, so some of the key meetings that I went to in the last few weeks was I met with the Alliance of BC Students. So this was Ariana Chartrand, which is the chair of ABCS, and then also Joshua Milliard, which is the executive director. Had a quick meeting with them. It was around an hour, and it was more so in regards to the provincial budget this year. So we kind of talked about that, but also outlining some of the things like within my portfolio. I also believe this was the week that Gabe was on leave, so we are setting up an additional meeting to in the next few weeks, hopefully to follow up with that, as well as make sure that I also asked for a few action items in terms of like they're going to be working with, I believe, UVic and also UBC on some other things in regards to portfolios that will be upcoming in the fall. So they'll keep me posted on that. So just awaiting that email. So, and then also another key meeting that also Corbett mentioned was with Allison Gu. So this is like an introductory meeting and looking at areas of alignment with Burnaby City Council and just congratulating them on their new position within the by-election. So another thing, I was appointed to the UPass BC Student Association caucus to represent the SFSS. Very exciting. I think I updated that a few weeks ago and I got an email. So I have been appointed to that. That was through like a small electoral process within the UPass like BC student like caucus with other student societies. So myself, a couple other folks from UBC. So there's 3 of us. So with more information with that coming, I will send updates. So basically, as we know, I've been kind of on call, waiting for the federal election to be called. I wake up every day hoping that it hasn't been called. So just preparing for that in advance. So, you know, myself and Ella have been creating like some comms material just to get students notified that when the federal election is called, that we will have some comms material out. And yeah, so I've also been working on a joint letter with TSSU in regards to addressing the residential school system and some asks. And I guess in terms of like lobbying points that we kind of want to bring up provincially, federally, and also within SFU. I was working with the in-person events guidelines just as a support and kind of having some input here and there. Currently continuing the bargaining process, which was with this week, so had a very eventful few days. I've been working with Ella, our board organizer, to create resources for the External and Community Affairs Committee, the ECA committee. So, you know, I've been prepping some development sessions internally to ECA in terms of getting folks prepped for lobby days and also some things that will be upcoming in the fall, and especially in regards to federal elections, looking to create some resources for ECA in regards to, you know, how do we prep our briefing notes for lobby days, or, you know, things like this. And so just creating all those, getting them set up like with our shared drive.
Just to let you know, Matt, we've gone over 3 minutes.
Oh, we have? All right, it's coming.
Yeah.
I don't need to talk anymore.
Thank you though, Matt, for your report. You almost made it. VP University and Academic Affairs.
Hey everyone, so I thought I'd just go over mostly the committee stuff I've been doing. So for University and Academic Affairs, I've been receiving some reports from the Accessible Course Practices campaign, and we'll be discussing the letter that they drafted today as well. Appointed Kashish as the vice chair of UAA, and also have reviewed the progress on the undergraduate survey, which one of my AVPs, Priyanka, has been working on. We're just finishing up basically for that survey, just a few last questions, determining like what we want the length to be, and especially because we don't want it to be too long, because we want people to fill it out, but still figuring that out. I don't know if I'd mentioned this before, so it includes like health and counseling, includes Cal, overall student experience, courses, a bunch of stuff. But if there's something that you'd like to see in it, please let me know. For the accessibility committee, an accessibility audit of the sub was done fairly recently. I think it was like from August 3rd to 4th and 5th, maybe. So that's done, and we're waiting for the results from that from Level Playing Field and Brianna, the accessibility assistant, who had been helping with that. Also working on the proposal for the SFU DNA Accessibility Center, getting more specific numbers so we can bring that back to council or go through AC. We'll see what happens. Next, working on the Accessibility Center space, layout, furniture, library, a lot of the specifics of like what folks want to see in that space. Another thing that I forgot to write here is we're also working on like a consultation program of like if folks need to consult disabled students on something, that they can receive compensation for their labor as like a flat rate. And we're trying to figure out how to make that like real and not just an idea. So that's what AC has been up to. Next is Academic Concessions and Medical Notes Working Group. This is a new group. So basically, it tries to cover academic concessions, and academic concessions is anything that's not covered by academic accommodations, which is what's under the purview of the Center for Accessible Learning. So hopefully that makes sense. But basically, medical notes likely will not be required for the fall semester for short-term illness. Trish and I have been trying to push oh my God, 30 seconds. Okay, blah, 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 who cares? Making changes regarding academic concessions has been much more difficult. They're annoying. They don't think it's within the group scope. Admin assistant hiring committee, successful candidate accepted our offers and in the process of being onboarded. Return to campus access for all campaign received a lot of concerns from immunocompromised folks about being excluded from their education because of SFU not requiring a mask or vaccination mandate. So I'm still trying to figure out how to better advocate for those access needs. And if anyone has any concerns about return to campus that you don't think that was covered in the Access for All campaign, please let me know. Thank you so much.
I'll just appreciate how much Serena just like picked it up as soon as she that was good. Yeah, Jess, you have the floor for 3 minutes.
I returned from my leave of absence this Monday. The week before, we worked a lot on internal club matters that are confidential. And then this week, we really got a good plan going on for the soft opening. More details to come out later, but for now, it's on the DL. I will work on the in-person event guidelines for within the sub-building itself, which is in relation to the room booking guidelines. Shout out to Shelley for working on that and for really revamping on how we do that room booking system as well. These in-person event guidelines plus the room booking guidelines go hand in hand. So I'm just waiting to finalize that document and have it approved as well. We selected a candidate for the Women's Center assistant, and they're going to be onboarded sometime in August. Today I met with the Indigenous Student Center to start our relationships together so that we can move forward with any collaborations that we have. This week, I'm going to be there to help onboard the building coordinator and the out on campus coordinator, who are both recently new hired as well. So we have been doing so many new hires, and then there's still another hiring committee. So that's a lot of admin work as well. And then this week and the week before my leave, I met with some folks from student engagement and retention for that welcome back event in September. And then what we do in those meetings is we always give reports from our own departments to see what MEX is doing, to see what SER is doing, and to see what SFSS is doing, and to see where we can collaborate with one another and anything like that. We also selected, shout out to, I feel like it's nomination committee for helping me select the Events and Student Affairs Committee at-large members. And there are around 5 of them, I believe, and then we'll open it up again for the fall semester when we return. And then yesterday, I sent out some meeting times and call out for agenda items for ECAC and MSAC to meet next week. And that's it so far since I was on leave.
Thank you, Jess. And with 46 seconds to spare, we can move on from the report from the executive committee at this time and move into 6.2, which is report from the governance committee. And this was submitted by the VP Internal and Organizational Development, AKA the chair of governance committee. So Corbin, you have the floor.
Thank you. This won't be very long. Just a quick update. We've had a couple meetings and we voted in a vice chair and we reviewed the previous year's governance committee annual plan, how it went, what got moved, what got changed, if there was anything that needed to be continued to work on. And we also then, in a follow-up meeting, we discussed the need to develop our own annual plan for council approved in early September. Some of the initial ideas for this will be things like going through all of our, like developing a policy review schedule, as well as what you need to determine if your policy is working or not, like some metrics and a matrix to compare against. There is definitely some policies that need to be updated. There's some that need to be fleshed out. There's some that I think are missing, like some stuff around bullying and harassment and other how we handle certain types of specific issues, especially from member to member. So that's one of the few things we'll be working on. Also, the rest of the group will brainstorm and come up with develop a plan, ideally again at the end of August, to submit to council for approval for early September. Thank you.
Thank you, Corbett, for that report. We'll move on then to the next report, which is 6.3, nomination committee report. And this was submitted also by the VP Internal and Organizational Development, who is the chair of a nominating committee.
And just a heads up, I'll have another one after this too, for another committee. Yay, being chair of 3 committees at the same time. Okay, so nominating committee we've met multiple times. We went through and reviewed student large applications for a number of committees. We got recommendations from a number of chairs, and we approved, recommended those people to be approved by and appointed by council, which was done over multiple council meetings in the consent agenda. And so that's really about it. We do expect that there will be changes over in committee composition for both student at larges as well as counselors for the fall term, because we'll all have different class schedules. And there is some that you'll find that you may not be able to meet, some people may not be able to meet. So I expect another round of appointing council members and student at larges to committees in the fall.
Thank you, Corbett. Next, we have 6.4, which is members meeting planning committee report. This was submitted by the VP Internal and Organizational Development, Corbett Gildersleeve, who is the chair of members meeting planning committee.
Thank you. So this last one is, so we've met twice. We set a rough timeline for the agenda. One, we also we voted in a vice chair. We also discussed a rough timeline for an AGM based on what our bylaws require, which is that the AGM can be held between September 15th and October 31st. Looking at this calendar, we went through last year's AGM, what we thought was the good and the bad about it, some of the challenges and some of the benefits. The fact it was a virtual AGM in the middle of a pandemic, the first time we've ever did anything like that. And we set up a timeline, a rough timeline based on what weeks of the month that we could hold it in. So right now we're looking at having the AGM in the last week of October, sometime between 24th to 29th. We'll set up a date closer to the end of August when we can talk with SFU after open enrollments and stuff is what the open enrollment is more or less done, that we can get an idea of like what is the most dense periods of the day for classes versus least amount, and try to choose a time and a day that has theoretically the most possible chance of students to arrive. That's how we did it last year, and it's really the only way we can really do it, I think. Ideally, we'd like to have this virtual possible because it's more accessible, but there was some challenges last year, so we're working on ways to not have those repeat mistake. But anyways, so we're looking to do the AGM in the last week of October, which means we'd have to have around the first week of October or the last week of September the notification to go out to members, because we need to get at least 21 days notice. And September 29th is a council meeting. That's the last day for a council meeting that we could do to finalize and call the AGM for council to do so. And that means about a month or so earlier, around first week or so of September, we would have to make an announcement around students that we were going to be holding the AGM, and that if you wanted, and talk about the idea of a member's petition, if you wanted to have items submitted to the agenda, because that stuff will take a while for people to go and potentially get, a whole bunch of signatures, which is, we can go into the process in a future dev session about how AGMs are set up and all the rules around them. And we've also met with the communications coordinator to discuss what support we'll need, be able to advertise the AGM, advertise motions and such, and while developing a campaign that council can work on and engage with to help encourage students to attend and hopefully vote yes on things, because we will be the ones to set a number of the agenda items. So, and our goal is to have a full draft plan submitted to council by the end of August. Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for the report, Corbett. And our last report from a committee is 6.5, report from the External and Community Affairs. This was submitted by the VP External and Community Affairs, Matt Provost, who is the chair of External and Community Affairs Committee.
It's a lot of external and community affairs. Thank you, Gabe. So yeah, we had our first meeting last week. It was really dope. I had a lot of fun. And then, can you turn that off? Thank you. Sorry, my brother, we're sharing a room right now. Very small in here. So basically from our first one, I just went over, we appointed a chair. So congrats to Chloe Homniuk, environment rep, for, you know, taking up the role as vice chair. And then so what happened in the first meeting is we just went over discussion items and whatnot in terms of like expectations and how the committee will run for the duration of the year. We went over the external and community affairs like development sessions that I've been working on with Ella and also Aisha, just to like, you know, have things in order for I guess folks on ECA to be comfortable when we go for lobby days. So this will cover things within like public speaking, campaigning 101, lobbying 101. And then also I got kind of a gauge of like what folks wanted to work on throughout the year. And so we'll be discussing that at our upcoming meeting. So looking forward to that. And we went over, you know, just pretty much introductions, what people's interests are and what they're interested in doing for the duration of the year. I also sent out resources and whatnot so that folks can kind of take a look at like my annual plan. And if there's anything that they want to work on individually. Also, I want to make this space, you know, something that folks can also take into hopefully like after the duration of the year. So hopefully things that they learn, you know, will help them out later on. We also, I sent the federal advocacy report and also provincial lobbying report from last year. So we'll be discussing that. And those are just a couple things that have been ongoing. If I have any more information, then I'll keep everybody posted.
Thank you, Matt, for your report. So that concludes section 6 of the agenda today, which was report from committees. And now we're going to move into section 7 of the agenda, which is in camera. And just a reminder, an in-camera session is a confidential session of council where only councilors and invited guests are allowed to be present. And so in order to hold the in-camera session, I will be creating a breakout room in which I'll be inviting all the councilors to join. And once that in-camera session concludes, we will return back to the main room and the breakout room will be closed. No, Abby, you may not. By invited guests, I typically mean society staff or folks who are speaking to the motions. Do alternates count? Alternates can join in-camera sessions. It is just a reminder to everyone here, not just alternates, that whatever is discussed in an in-camera session is to remain confidential, and you cannot share the information discussed in an in-camera session with folks outside of the people present in an in-camera session. And that is, you are bound by the Societies Act. So that is law that during in-camera sessions, you must keep that information confidential. Thank you for the question, Alia. So I will go ahead and move into 7.1, and we need to, as per, so I believe the exception would be you could tell your counselor, the one that you're representing. However, no one else, say on like your executive team of your student union or anyone else besides a voting member of council. That's a good question though. Thank you, Kayla. Yeah. Okay, so as per procedure, we need to vote to go in camera. And just let the record reflect, I'm not sure why it said it was submitted by VP Events and Student Affairs. It was submitted by me. So we'll just correct that for the minutes, but be it resolved to go in camera for the remainder of the meeting. Why am I tripping up on my words? I will move this motion. Would someone like to second?
Corbett seconds.
Corbett seconds. Okay. So again, we'll be going in camera. I'll be making a breakout room in order to do this. All discussions in camera are confidential. All those in favor of going in camera seeking unanimous consent? Okay, the motion is carried. And I will be pausing the meeting recording. Let the record reflect that it's 6:44 and I've just restarted the recording. We need to motion to go X camera. So we are at 8.1 on our agenda. And I'll read the motion now. Be it resolved to go X camera. Do I have a mover?
Jess moves.
Jess moves. Is there a seconder?
Bisu seconds.
Evan seconds. We'll put the question to a vote as this is mainly procedural. All those in favor of going X camera, coming out of our in-camera session, seeking unanimous consent? All right, I'm seeing no objections to the motion, so that's carried with unanimous consent. And we are at 6:44 and we have been in a meeting for about 2 hours and 15 minutes. So it is probably desirable to take a break. So we will take a pause now at 6:45. Let's say 10 minutes. We'll come back at 6:55. Does that sound good? Okay, thanks everyone. We'll see you soon. So I will be reconvening council. It is 6:56 p.m. And we are currently set to consider the motions under new business next. And first, under our agenda is 9.1. Excuse me, the motion titled SFSS Health and Dental Plan Referendum Commitment. And this was submitted by the VP Internal and Organizational Development, Corbett Gildersleeve. And so I will read the question now. Whereas the SFSS has a health and dental plan, whereas the costs with using the plan have increased over the last 5 years, whereas our fees collected from members have not changed since summer 2018, whereas the council's ability to adjust the fees by plus or minus 5% will expire by spring 2022, be it resolved that council commit to submitting a referendum question to be voted on by our members to increase the health and dental fee for the 2022-2023 policy year, and be it further resolved that council commit to submitting a referendum question to be voted on by our members to renew council's ability to adjust the fees by plus or minus 5% until spring 2025. Do I have a mover for the motion?
Corbett moves.
Corbett moves the motion. Is there a seconder?
Tiffany seconds.
Tiffany seconds. All right, thank you, folks. And we do have a representative from Student Care here tonight, Bahara, who is here to answer any questions if there are any. I did just want to pass the floor off to Corbett, though, if you wanted to introduce the motion.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Bahar, for attending. So the purpose of this motion is the Student Care has been meeting with the SFS board and executives and now council and executives for last 6+ months around going back throughout the year they give us updates on the health and dental plan, the usage, the fee costs, the projections for how much they think next year will be, et cetera. Because our insurance provider for our student health and dental plan, the vision and et cetera, is currently Pacific Blue Cross, but that can change every year. Our insurance gets renewed every year with them, and so there's usually a difference. In more traditional models, you have just you negotiate a premium rate that that effectively each student would pay, and sorry, it's been a long couple of days, so I'm not as focused as I usually am. You negotiate a fee and you charge that to students, and usually we have a few additional administrative fees on top of that for ourselves, for SFU, because they are the ones who collect the fees on our behalf and transmit to us, as well as student care has a admin fee for being our administrator and broker, and the kind of the working that they're the person who receives the claims by students and facilitates that with the insurer and goes back and forth. And so some of the history on this is that in 2000, we used to have that model where you make you just negotiate a fee each year with the insurance company, and every once in a while you just pay the fee, and if you and you just collect the fee and you submit it to the insurance companies. And if there is a really high plan usage of the plan, then usually the insurance company's costs go up, and next year they negotiate for a higher fee to take advantage of that. If it goes down, we don't necessarily see that, but we usually try to negotiate a lower fee anyways. However, in 2018, there was a review done by the board that year, and working with student care, they changed to a different model called retention accounting. What this is we settle on a fee with the insurance company, and if students use the plan a lot and there's a lot of usage, and so that drives up the costs, then we pay a deficit. We pay that the deficit that would happen from that. If the students underutilize a plan, like it happened during the pandemic when a lot of students couldn't go to the dentist and couldn't necessarily go to the doctor much, we would get a surplus back. The benefits of this plan is it's a little more transparent for us. We know how much things cost, and there's the deficit and surplus. And if you have, as long as you maintain a good reserve fund, you're okay. The downside of that is you can't really negotiate for lower rates for each year, because from the insurer's perspective, you just pay the difference anyways, if they quote you a very low price. So the belief at the time from the board was that we were paying too high rates, and so we went to this other model so we can see how things are going, and we expected, and they lowered the rates, the student fees by quite a bit. And so saved students some money. They didn't have to pay as high health and dental plan fees. However, a few years later, when we finally got the bills in, that wasn't necessarily the case. Students actually used the plan quite a bit, and we ended up having a $600,000 deficit we had to pay back. But then COVID hit, and that caused a lot of underusage, and so we received a surplus the next year. And now that we're still in this we're still in the pandemic, but things have been opening up and it's kind of been more accessibility, we've still had a bit of a surplus coming back. However, student care has, and based on insurance companies' projections, they're expecting with everything opening up and that costs students and stuff especially will use the plan a lot more, and then fees will go up, and then we'll have another deficit to pay. And so one thing that the execs did, as was within our power, because this is an annual thing that can be changed from year to year, we switched over to that older model where you just negotiate a fee, and we don't have to worry about deficits or surpluses anymore, at least for this next year. And also this gives student care time as our negotiator and administrator to go to our insurer and say, what deal can you give us? So what does that have to do with the motion? Well, two things. One is because we don't know yet what that fee will be. but it will probably be different than what we have now. Whether it's higher or lower, we don't know. That'll come a little bit later, but it's smart for us to be prepped ahead and plan that for a spring referendum to commit to running a spring referendum to change the fee to match whatever it is going to be later down in the road. The other thing too is for a while, for multiple years, we had the ability, we technically still have the ability to adjust the fee by up to 5%, either less or more. We haven't used it that much because we had so many up and down years. It was hard to know if we need to adjust the fee or not, because some years we had big surpluses, some years we had big deficits. But that's expiring at the end of spring. It was a 5-year sunset clause that was passed in spring 2017. So it would expire in spring 2022. And so what we want to also ask is that this council also commits to trying for a referendum for that. I think there'll be 2 separate referendums, one for the fee change and one for the ability to adjust the fee a bit. And one of the benefits of that, even with like a flat rate thing, is you can still say lower the fee a little bit, like say by 5%. And if you want to say to use up some of your surplus reserves to save students a little bit of money and then shrink down some of your reserves to a more manageable level. And so you're not like hold on to a bunch of money that's not really getting used, right? And that can't be used for anything other than as a reserve for the student health plan. Or the vice versa, if you need, instead of having to go back every single year to students just to raise up for 2% or 3% based for inflation, we can just adjust it for the next couple of years. So it's simpler. And that's really just the point of this whole motion, is for us to commit to doing an action for the spring, so we don't forget about it and don't get busy in the fall.
Thank you, Corbett, for the introduction of the motion. And I don't, Bahara, would you like to take a moment to fill in any gaps or mention anything, if there is anything you'd like to discuss?
For sure. Thank you so much, Corbett. That was a wonderful breakdown of the history. And just quickly to recap again, the SFSS Extended Health and Dental Plan fee, the dollar amount that students see on their tuition statement, has not been adjusted at least for a minimum of 2 years, potentially 3, if I'm not mistaken. So the cost of the plan to students has been very, very stable. But despite that, as per inflationary adjustments on an extended health and dental plan, the cost of the plan has been incrementally going up. So there is going to come a time where the cost of the plan will need to be adjusted in order to keep plan benefits stable and consistent. So you guys are absolutely preparing for the future, which is really, really wonderful. And this is just to grant the continuation of the existing referendum that was passed in 2017 that granted the board the ability to adjust by up to 5%, which is very standard across student associations in general. So 5% is kind of the general minimum, the lower end of the inflationary impact that you'll see on your extended health and dental plan year over year. So inflation year over year will be anywhere between 5 to 8%, depending. And so that's essentially what you're capturing by granting that exception.
Thank you very much, Bahara. At this time, excuse me, I have the hiccups from eating too fast during the break. At this time, the floor is open to members of council if there's any discussion or questions to be had. Mahinder, go ahead.
So one question that arises in mind is that in the history, like how many times did we go over, like we had to pay back, or did we get the surplus?
I can talk to that. So prior to 2018, you folks were on a fully insured plan model, meaning that a premium is evaluated based on the plan usage from previous year's data. And that's locked in for the year. And if your total dollar amount spent, so the money that students get back from the extended health and dental plan, is below a certain threshold, the insurance company kept that money. And if it's above a certain threshold, so going above the total dollar amounts paid out to the insurance company in addition to your administrative expenses, then the SFSS was liable and had to pay back those monies. So you folks switched over to this new plan in 2018. And the reason and rationale for that was because for a few years prior to 2018, so we usually work on a 3 to 5 year horizon when we're projecting forward, your plan was seeing relative stability. And that's kind of ideal for a retention accounting plan. It's where you want to see consistency and kind of stability on overall plan usage, because it helps for projecting forward, and you can, again, bank on that stability in kind of being able to gauge where the cost of your plan ought to be. However, kind of timing was kind of unfortunate here because we switched over to fully retention accounting. And then the following year, we saw a really significant spike in vision claims. So that's what's really caused that $600,000 deficit, in conjunction with the fact that the plan was just seeing the regular inflationary uptake that we would see kind of year over year. So vision claims went up, which was in part one of the reasons that led to a deficit that was paid back by the SFSS. And then following that kind of tumultuous vision year was the 2019-20 academic year, which was the year that the SFSS extended health and dental plan got hit the hardest by the pandemic. So a lot of students weren't using the services in the same capacity. So you actually got back quite a bit of the money that you would have had to have paid out the previous year. And now we're in 2020, 2021, we're seeing a healthy rebound of the plan usage. However, we're not fully out of like that COVID experience yet. So there is going to be a slight refund back to the SFSS, but going forward for next year, provided that we need to plan around this referendum and plan around increasing the cost of the plan to kind of keep up with inflation, we're switching back to fully insured to protect the SFSS against any like tumultuous claims. So really, we want to make sure that you folks aren't going to be in a position similar to 2018-19 where you had to pay out a pretty substantial amount of money back to the insurance company, and we can just kind of gauge how the plan is going to be projecting moving forward. Hopefully that helps clarify a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question, and thank you for the answer, Bahara. Are there any other questions for members of council? Devin, you have the floor.
Yeah, so I guess my question is more, how will this overall affect the fees that students are paying in general to the SFSS? But I know you could opt out of health and dental if you're not using it, but I also know that every year it seems that because inflation and everything like that, that fees are going up and tuition is going up. And so I don't think necessarily that I disagree with the intake because of inflation and stuff, but it's more a question of how this will affect students' affordability going forward, into especially as we return to more students on campus and more international students returning and needing health and dental.
Robert, would you like me to take this?
Sure. Might be
or if you have comments, by all means.
I can jump in, I think, after.
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. So absolutely, I think plan affordability is a really huge variable when it comes to the extended health and dental plan. So obviously we want to make sure we're doing everything in our path to bring savings forward to students and to keep the plan as sustainable as possible when it comes to just providing a service to students. One thing that needs to kind of be just generally understood about the extended health and dental plan is that the savings really comes from the group purchasing power. So if an individual were to go out and purchase the same suite of benefits because they don't have access to a parent's plan or a partner's plan or plan through an employer, they're paying anywhere between like 4 to 6 times more than what this plan costs on an annual basis. So the purchasing power as a collective is what really keeps like the cost lower than what it would be if an individual were to go out and buy the plan. And then in addition to that, one of the things we do is just kind of monitor plan usage and see what areas of the plan are kind of consistently trending higher in terms of usage rates, just so we know kind of if we aren't able to increase the cost of the plan by an inflationary index, what's driving the cost of the plan? Because in insurance and just generally how the plan works is that benefits that are used the most are what cause that inflationary impact year over year. So that's something that we need to keep in mind. But generally speaking, I think it should be understood that the cost of the plan should be consistently keeping up with inflation, which is roughly 5 to 8% year over year. And I know that seems like a lot, and it's kind of something that we try and control for by just measuring the overall population size. So as the student population size grows over time, that also positively impacts the cost of the plan, and also just monitoring overall plan usage and seeing what benefits are really causing. If there is a spike in overall plan cost, seeing what those benefits are, and then kind of comparing that to survey data that we have. So we do routine surveys of your membership to see what their priorities are. So what benefits they find the most important and what their cost sensitivities are. Are they willing to reduce benefits in order to keep the cost of the plan lower, or are they more susceptible and open to increasing the cost of the plan in order to maintain benefits and or increase benefits to kind of keep benefit levels in line with what's happening in the market from an inflationary standpoint. So these are a couple of the things that we kind of factor in when looking at the overall cost of the plan year over year and overall long-term horizon.
And from a, like our perspective as the people that have this, like, sorry, I don't even think the word for it. Basically, like our perspective also from thinking about student affordability is the reserves that we do have. It's important to maintain them at a reasonable level. So in case, I believe in our case, we will have, we do have quite a good solid reserve right now that even if we do take another big hit, I believe we can afford it, and we still have some left over. One of the benefits of being able to adjust the fee a bit, like up to that 5% range, is say it's a 4% inflation increase, but we only raise it by 2%, the fee by 2%, because we want to slowly bleed off part of our reserve fund. So we could hold it at level for another year, because we know we can, based on modeling and stuff, that we can actually take that hit. You know, so it takes a lot of work on, especially on the financial end, and working with student care and looking at our own and talking with our students and seeing what they feel comfortable with, like doing consultation here and there. There's surveys that get sent out every year that student care works with us on crafting. And making so that we use that to make adjustments to the plan, to fees, and the kind of the overall high level administration of the plan itself.
Thank you both. Devin, that answers your question?
Yes, thank you guys so much.
Nice. Any subsequent questions from members of council? Okay, is everyone feeling comfortable with the motion on the table? Any reservations or concerns? Okay. Corbett or Bahara, any last words? Okay, well, with that, we'll put the question to a vote. And I will just read the motion one more time. So be it resolved that council commit to submitting a referendum question to be voted on by our members to increase the health and dental plan fee for the 2022-2023 policy year. Be it further resolved that council commit to submitting a referendum question to be voted on by our members to renew council's ability to adjust the fees by plus or minus 5% until spring 2025. Based on the discussion we had just now, I am going to seek unanimous consent on the motion. And if you would like to vote against or abstain the motion, please use the Zoom raise hand feature. And if there are any objections, that's when we will move to a roll call vote. Okay, I'm seeing no objections being signaled to me. So the motion is carried unanimously. So thank you, councilors, and thank you, Bahar, for coming in and answering questions.
Thank you, folks. Have a great rest of your meeting.
Thank you. Okay, and so next we have the motion that was added to the agenda at the top, which I need to pull up, if you can give me a moment. I don't know if this was actually, the motion was given a title, but I will assume it's Faculty Student Union Common Room Space. And this motion was submitted by Councillor Zaid Lari, and I'll read the motion now. Whereas the Science Undergraduate Student Society and the Society of Arts and Social Sciences are the two largest faculty student unions in the SFSS, whereas the student union building is set to open on August 23rd, 2021, and become fully operational during the fall semester. Whereas the Student Union building has suitable spaces on the 3rd floor, which could potentially be used as Student Union common rooms. Be it resolved that the SFSS allocate rooms 3220 and 3230 for the Student Union, for the Science Undergrad Society and the Society of Arts and Social Sciences common room spaces in the Student Union building. Be it further resolved that Council strike a Faculty Student Union common room working group composed of the Council representatives, presidents, and other relevant executives from SUS and SAS, and the sub-building manager, and will be chaired by the VP Internal and Organizational Development. Lastly, be it resolved that the purpose of the working group be to determine any associated costs and draft a separate memorandums of understanding between the SFSS and the respective faculty student unions. Do I have a mover?
Sus.
Zaid moves the motion. Is there a seconder?
Jeremy Ayat seconds.
Jeremy seconds. And Zaid, as the author and the mover of the motion, you have the floor to introduce the motion.
Thank you, Gabe. So I guess I'm just going to give a little bit of background for everyone regarding why we're bringing this motion forward to all of you. So back last term, the previous iteration of council, we voted to and launched a space campaign for student unions within the university. We really, I guess, emphasize, the different needs for student union common rooms, for creating a sense of community for student unions, places where they can have their meetings and whatnot. And following that, we did receive also support from the board of directors. So after this campaign, DSUs were to send an open letter that was, well, not an open letter, but there was a letter that was penned by council and myself that was sent to department heads. This letter was supposed to be for negotiating space. So right after this, SUS went to our faculty's dean's office to look at what kind of spaces they have available and to start negotiations. When we spoke with them, our faculty is quite hands-off when it comes to regards to space. They only have space allocations for offices, and we were made aware by the dean's office that currently their offices are housing 2 to 3 staff per office. They're very, very short on space there, and their offices are also just not suitable in size. So after that, we then decided that, okay, as the 2 largest faculty student unions here in the SFSS, we would then go to look at the student union building. Originally, we did have a slightly different motion that we had put into this letter, and we took that to share with all the different DSUs during discussion. Shriek went to all of the science DSUs meetings and spoke with them to gather support. After yesterday's meeting with the building manager, we were told that it'd be appreciative if we were to designate the actual spaces specifically that we are requesting rather than leaving the motion open-ended. So in response to that, we then amended this motion after checking out the spaces 3220 and 3230 in the student union building. We originally had a few other spaces in mind. However, those ones were much larger and had video conferencing equipment, which was not feasible. And we found that these were the only spaces that seemed to fit the needs that we outlined within our letter there. I know that there was something brought up regarding the MOU with the Faculty of Science. That MOU was just a mutual understanding regarding the needs of common room spaces for our DSUs. And again, after the talks that we had with them, seeing how little space that they currently have for their own staff, it really doesn't make sense for us to try and take especially a small office. And any other space that we would try to acquire within the faculty would be taken from other departments, which would then mean that we would be taking potential common room space or storage space from our other constituent DSUs, which obviously is not fair. But yeah, if anyone has any questions regarding this, I know that we wanted to take a look at, what exactly the floor plans are. So I'm thinking, pending after we get some other people to list on here, maybe before we vote, we can also take a look at what the room sizes look like and what are the current allocations for different spaces in the sub. And also if anybody does want, I don't know if you can upload photos here, but we do have a photo of what 3220 actually looks like. It's roughly a 10-person meeting room. So I know we can provide that as well. Maybe we can put it into the Discord, but that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Zaid. And I do just want to mention that for this motion, I'll be passing the chair off to Devin because I would like to actively participate in this discussion today. So Devin, I'm just going to pass it over to you.
Thanks, Gabe. And Zaid, if you can put that image in the Discord, that would be amazing. I think a lot of people would help with, including myself, with a visual aid. So if that's at all possible, or if you can do it in the Discord, in the Zoom chat, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll move on to ACOM is next on the list.
Yeah, I just wanted to also talk a little bit about why we're bringing forward this motion. As you all, or most of you probably know, that voting in favor of the space campaign last year meant that council really recognized the pressing issue of DSU's lacking space and what that means for students. So this motion is an attempt to alleviate the burden that all of us face, not all of us, but for especially SAS spaces, but also the DSUs that are within FAST space, and trying to find space not only for their meetings, but a common space for us to gather in and for students to sort of engage and connect within as well. And part of that is that it's actually part of the plans that SAS has for our common room space specifically, is to actually open it up for all FAST DSUs to be able to make semesterly bookings so that they're not put in that position of having to find last minute space and compete with thousands of students on campus for bookable spaces in other common areas. So that's one of our goals. And our second goal is, while those rooms aren't being booked or while those rooms aren't being used, to open it up as a common room area. So those are our main goals, I think, with our common room spaces. And I am looking forward definitely to answering some of your questions today.
Thank you so much, ACOM. And I don't know what people think, and this might be out of order, but John, the building manager, did put in the chat that he'd be willing to do an overview of spaces and proposed plans. And I was wondering if people would think that that might be productive before we continue the discussion on the list. So just everyone can have an overview of the spaces that we were talking about. So if no one has any objections to that, John, if you could go ahead and maybe give an overview of the space. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thanks, Devin. Sorry, I didn't want to jump the queue there. I just want to preface this by saying that anytime a space request comes in, when it does get to me, I just independently look at what the need is and then what possible locations could work in the building. As far as I'm concerned, when it comes to space allocation, it was previously the board, but it's now the council who gets to make the final decisions on those things. I just think it's important that I do my bit just to make sure that they're informed decisions, that you know exactly what these outcomes will be, or what's being taken away, or what's being gained by the choices that are being made. If it's okay with people, can I share my screen, just because I think it might be easy to kind of work through a visual to kind of work our way through the building. All right.
Yeah, that's awesome, John. Thank you.
All right. Can people see this at the moment?
Yes.
Okay, so just to give people a brief overview, on level 1000 at the moment, with regards to bookable space as it stands, the only two spaces that would be bookable here are two small rehearsal booths, just on the left-hand bottom corner that you can see here. These have capacity for 2, maybe maximum 3 people, and their kind of intended use is for people to be able to use them to practice singing or to practice an instrument or piano or something like that as well. So then when you move up onto the second floor, we do have a couple of meeting rooms that Zaid just mentioned to, and they're over here just on the right-hand corner, and 2420 and 2440. So these have a capacity of about 20 to 22 people, and they also have built-in video conferencing facilities, and that's something that we actually just recently retrofitted. And the only other meeting room space on the second floor is actually linked to our community kitchen just back here, which is now on the top left-hand corner. So this room itself isn't really ideal as a meeting space, as it does have connecting glass sliding doors into the community kitchen. So really this should be seen as kind of one space together because it's interconnected. And then just as a point of reference, where you see meeting room here, these are old plans. So this is actually going to be the women's only lounge, or the self-identifying female lounge just here. So then we can pop up to 3, which is where we have the proposed areas. So just in terms of actual meeting rooms on the 3rd floor, we have 2230 just here, which has a capacity for about 22 people in a boardroom setup. We have 2220 next to it, which has capacity for about 18 to 20 people in a boardroom setup. And then the next room, 3210, this room itself is kind of unique because it has quite a heavy boardroom table in it, and then 10 rolling chairs around it. So the distinguishing factor along these 3 rooms here is that with this one here, 3210, we can't actually do any other setups. It's not a multifunctional space. Whereas with these 2 rooms here, we could in theory move out furniture. You could do like a theater style setup. You could put in round tables. You could do it for like a presentation, or you could do it in boardroom. And so that's the 3rd floor. So you'll actually note there isn't a lot of bookable space so far as we go. Things get a little bit different when we move up onto level 4000. So what we do have on level 4000 is we do have 15 smaller bookable rooms. And I just want to note that these rooms only have a capacity for approximately 6 people. So you'll see them just along here. There's 8 rooms just here. And then there's another 7 rooms just along the top left-hand corner here. So the difference in these spaces is that because they're so small, they're not really what we define as like multi-use spaces. And that's what's really valuable in the student union building, is having different spaces that can be used for different types of events or gatherings or different types of get-togethers. The one space on the 4th floor though that is multi-use is the boardroom here. This is a capacity for around 30 people in a boardroom style. You could also move out the tables. You could put it into a theater style, or you could put it into a round table style, even if you wanted to. And then when we pop up onto level 5000, we literally just have the ballroom, which is the multi-purpose room. And then we also have the pre-function area, which is just an open lounge area. So I know I went through that quite quickly, but just to give a bit of a recap, or what might actually be easier, is if I pop onto this tab here. Can people see this page? Yeah, this might give a better understanding of kind of what spaces we have and what they can be used for. So we do have approximately 15 rooms that can be used for meetings up to 6 people. But as it stands, we only have 5 what we refer to as multifunctional spaces, and 2 of which are up for motion at the moment. And it's just to draw the distinction factor between the idea of events and community building is that you're able to do different activities in different spaces. And in the 15 club rooms that we have, you're extremely limited to what you can do in those spaces. It's only in the larger meeting rooms that you're able to open them up and to do different things. So that's just a brief overview. I don't know if anybody has particular questions, or if you want to wait until the end in terms of any specific space, if you want to know like a square footage or what's contained in that space. Or even if you want to do that at the very end, if you want to loop back around to questions, I'm more than happy to answer anything.
I think if anyone has a direct response to a question pertaining to the building, so not as much the motion itself, but the building of the sub, please put the direct response little stars in the chat. And Zaid, you said you had a question.
Yeah, thank you, John. Thank you for the overview here. I was actually wondering if we could go over the remaining rooms that we have in here that we've designated to, I guess, like we have a video games room, other rooms that we are dedicating to other student groups as well here. I think we kind of went a bit quickly over there.
Yeah, so you want to recap of kind of non-bookable spaces, is it?
Yeah, so all the other spaces that we also have that exist in the sub here.
Yeah, perfect. And let me just jump back onto the plans. So on level 1000, space that's already been allocated. So in the bottom right-hand corner here, this will house FNSA. The next suite up from this will house SOCA. Next one up is CJSF. Next one up is SFPERG just here. This unit here is going to be DNA. And that's all of the spaces that have been allocated on level 1000. Then we transition to level 2000. Just for context as well, I'll include like the SFSS units too. So this is our women's center, this space just here in the top right-hand corner. This is the self-identifying females lounge that's attached to the women's center. Then as we move just down to the right, this is out on campuses space just here. As we move even further to the right, this is the Gamers Lounge where there is an existing MOU with esports at the moment. And then we can move to 3, which I don't think there's any assigned spaces. And then 4, there's, yeah, so that's all for the assigned spaces.
Awesome, Zaid. Does that answer your question? Does anyone else have any other questions for John before we go back to the list pertaining to the sub? Alrighty, so we can move back to the list. I'm just looking here for counselors getting priority, and I think the next would be Evan, if you would like to go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Devin. So as folks who recently have had our common room stripped away from us, we greatly empathize with the plight of the SUS and the SASS. As such, we believe that it is only fair and equitable that such groups have spaces that are appropriate for their size. And it would also be appropriate, we feel, for the student union building to house student unions. We may also ask either the SUS or the SASS to temporarily have our space to host things at, since we are in need of spaces. And so therefore, we implore you, we urge you to vote in favor of this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Evan. And I will move on to Gabe, if Gabe, you'd like to go ahead.
Sure. I do, however, Devin, did you, I think there were a couple of people before me.
I had Katya, who didn't have, I'm not sure, Katya, if you're a counselor, I'm sorry if you are, you didn't have by your name. And Sharik, who is an alternate, so an earlier got past. And Mohammed decided to move himself to the end because something came up, so he would like to go later. But I believe you're the next in terms of the priority standing.
Great, okay, thank you. Sorry about that confusion. So thank you, Devin. I just want to start off by saying that I am fully in support of fighting for student unions to get space on campus, anywhere on campus. I think that the more common room space that student unions can have, the more of an engaged campus we have, and the more that our student unions can thrive. I do, however, have a couple of reservations with this motion that I do think are important to bring up to council today. And I did outline my concerns. I sent out an email to council earlier today, and I hope everyone had a chance to see it. That being said, my biggest concern is that up until yesterday, there actually was no space tied to this motion. The motion only included a commitment to provide some space by the end of the day, by the end of this, that could be given to these faculty student unions. You know, since then there have been 2 rooms that SAS and SUS have identified, 3220 and 3230. However, the main concern that I have with, first of all, my main concern is that no details were sent to council beforehand on the current allocation of space in the sub. If I'm not mistaken, I'm sure that members of council have had to do kind of get a lay of the land in the student union building was just now when John gave an overview of it. So in that way, I think hopefully John's overview was a bit telling on the fact that there is very limited space in the sub already. There is, I believe, with the exception of maybe 1 storage room, every room has already been assigned. And if we, you know, are looking to, you know, by the end of the day, assign these faculty student unions the 2 spaces that are indicated in the motion, that is actually taking away services from existing services from students, those 2 bookable rooms. And I think, as John indicated, those two rooms that are identified in the motion are the two largest bookable spaces that we have in the sub in terms of being able to use it for multi-purposes, events, meetings, gatherings, et cetera, et cetera. And so I, you know, as much as I do think that those spaces would be very good common rooms, I worry about taking those spaces away for the general student population. I think that when we start taking away bookable space and assigning them to groups, that it can change the vibe of the building completely. And it ends up becoming a building where, you know, meetings happen and not necessarily a building of, you know, socializing and being able to book space for a variety of purposes. I think it is restrictive. You know, that being said, actually, I'll stop there because I think I'm approaching 2 minutes, but I'm happy to answer any questions on some of my concerns.
Yeah, it looks like we have a couple of direct responses, and I put in the chat, but I just want to let everyone know it is so much easier for me if you have CLLR beside your name or in front when you list yourself. It just makes it easier for me to know how to prioritize and makes my life easier. So thank you. And Zaid, you had a direct response.
Thank you. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Gabe. I know we had this discussion as well, but also in our letter we did address and we did reiterate here that you know, we would be actually reducing competition or at least shifting it away, competition with students by having these two spaces here that would be available for booking meetings for our constituent DSUs. As Environment had just also proposed, that's something we could definitely do is also open it up for the Faculty of Environment, seeing that their space is recently taken away. But, you know, we otherwise, including ourselves, we would all be trying to compete with, you know, students and clubs to try and get space. So what we're doing here really, I don't think that's that really what's happening here. Also regarding the vibe, what we're doing with these spaces is we're going, like, I don't know if you've actually visited a common room, but the point is that we have an open space for students to come in, to walk by. They see people, you know, hanging out, there's couches, people playing board games. You know, the vibe is really to have people relax and, you know, have people come in and socialize with each other there. So I really don't see what you mean about changing the vibe. During some specific hours, we may have meetings, but otherwise, we're planning to have an open space for people to get together and to really make a community.
Thank you, Zaid. And I know that you just went, but if you feel like you can answer this, Damon did have a question in the chat that other people might find helpful. But it's if SAS and SAS are looking for a space for meetings or a space for meetings and storage. So I guess you kind of answered it, but what's the purpose of these spaces, both for social or just for meetings? Zaid, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I think we also mentioned in the letter as well that, you know, when we have Frosh, when we host the variety of different events that we have, our formal, you know, below zero, molecules and mustaches and whatnot, we do need space to store our items. So we do get a lot of event items and equipment. We need a space. It can't be a meeting room that is, you know, something that changes every week. If it's a public meeting room there, then obviously things get stolen. We have, you know, merchandise and a lot of our previous events stuff as well that we really can't be storing at home. So yes, that is something that we would want to be using that space for as well.
Thank you, Zaid. And I just wanted to give a reminder, just as we kind of go throughout that direct response or kind of answering a question that somebody has asked or going with it, having a comment in response to somebody's question. So please list yourself. If it's not directly a direct response, you kind of plan to go off on a different direction. And if you are doing a direct response, as we kind of go throughout, and I have a couple others to go through, please just do a quick TDLR. What are you direct responding to? So everyone is on the same page. So like 3 seconds, I'm responding to blank about blank. And that would be really helpful to keep us all on track. And the next direct response was from Alan.
Thank you, Devin. Zaid already said a lot of what I was thinking. Thank you, Zaid. but yeah, I just want to say this is, I think, a great opportunity to not only organize sort of the DSUs, but also reduce, like Zaid said, competition, but it's also an incentive to actually draw students into the student union building. Otherwise, we'd be walking to other places on campus away from the student building. It would be centralized, right? Because we'd have to go into, let's say there's a supply closet where we have to store something. That could be anywhere not close to the sub. And by doing this, we're able to not only have this common room where we're able to come in and chat, but we're also able to localize any efforts, needs, necessities, wants of any respective student union that is basically represented in both these societies. I think this is, I don't think this would ruin the vibe at all. In fact, I think this would actually encourage student participation and student involvement in this student union building. And particularly on that point, if you could clarify further what you meant by vibe, because what I sort of sense in the meaning of vibe is that it contributes to an overall feeling of student, socialization, student organization, and also, of course, the general campus, feeling of peerage and whatnot. Yeah, I think it is a great opportunity right now to provide both of these societies and their respective DSUs spaces where they won't have to compete. They'll be localized, centralized, and of course, we won't have issues, of course, when dealing with logistic concerns, for example. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to say. And Zay already elaborated a lot on that, but thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. And Gabe, you have a direct response. And just before Gabe goes ahead, I am going to be now enforcing looking at the list I now have, a harsh 2-minute rule and like a pretty harsh 2-list rule. If it's direct response, I'm a lot more lenient about that, but 2 lists per person, just because we all have to go to sleep at some point. Thanks, guys. And Gabe, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Devin. And I just wanted to directly respond to Alan's question around what I meant by the vibe. And what I meant by vibe, essentially, Alan, I don't believe that a common room space would necessarily negatively impact the vibe of the building. What I do think it would negatively impact is students' access to the building. So right now, what we know is that most of the spaces that were identified as potential common room spaces are currently bookable spaces. And what we know is that bookable spaces right now on campus are incredibly scarce. I mean, if you try to book a study room in the library, a study room in the education building, a study room anywhere, or for, to use those study rooms for any purpose, it is incredibly difficult to do so. And so by assigning these existing bookable spaces as designated common room spaces, it may, what I am understanding is that, a common room space is there for these faculty student unions to serve their members. So, the Science Undergrad Society, if it has a common room in the sub, you're more likely to prioritize your own membership, your science students to, use it for events, to use it for meetings, to use it for whatever you want, regular lounge space. And that restricts the use of those spaces to clubs or general students at SFU to access those spaces. And that's really what I'm concerned about. I know for a fact that there is a plethora of space at SFU that could be used as common room space. We just need to work together to lobby SFU and to advocate for that space, because at the end of the day, university should be providing common room spaces to students advocating and serving their students, serving their members.
Thanks so much, Gabe. Sorry, I was responding to a message. It looked like Alan had a direct response, and then after that, I think we can move on from this topic and move on to ACOM just to give people a think. But Alan, you go ahead.
Thank you. Gabe, I believe we have a different philosophy than when it comes to accessibility. In regards to that, I can say that I think this would actually do the opposite. I think this could actually increase accessibility, because not only does it remove the detriment of having to compete for spaces for some of these DSUs, because these will, of course, be localized as we both know, spaces, and as you brought up, spaces are limited on campus. By localizing these two common rooms in the sub, we are increasing availability for students in booking rooms that would otherwise have been used by those student unions. And of course, being organizationally composed underneath either society allows for greater collaboration between student unions to actually organize and, of course, book times within those common rooms, rather than having sort of more of an unorganized process in which we have both students, clubs, and student unions trying to vie for different spaces in the sub and across campus. Instead of that, we have in purpose the ability to organize and better manage the space and the times of their use when it's under two student societies. This is just better organization. It's efficient. I'm seeing sort of an impracticality where we would not have those spaces. I think, of course, you know, there are definitely some good concerns for accessibility, but like I said, I think this actually increases accessibility, especially for students from smaller student unions who are unable to get common space, and of course, other student unions who are included in those societies who are unable to get space, as of course campus is quite old. There's not a lot of spaces available, like Zaid said earlier, with you know, the science department. This better incentivizes students to move into a location, and of course it gives us better access to space, especially in a newer building, student union building. It allows us to make use of a great and a wonderful building, and I think in purpose that would be a great use of it in providing space for our respective student unions.
All right, thanks, Alan. And just to kind of, because I think it would be really helpful, it was just by Jess earlier, I'm going to suspend for a second the direct responses. I have them all noted, I promise, and just ask John to talk, or just suggested John to talk more about the booking process, as counselors we're not fully aware of what the SFSS is putting forward right now, and I think it would really inform our discussion that we're currently having. So John, if you could talk more about that, that would be lovely.
So at the moment, there are guidelines being developed, and the reason why they're going down the route of guidelines rather than a policy is because realistically, it's going to take us maybe 6 or 7 months to get a real good feel for the building and what students' needs are. So we don't want to set anything in stone straight out the gate. We want to just have a few guidelines that people kind of operate within, and then later down the line, we'll develop a full-scale policy around it. To give people an idea of what those guidelines look like, I mentioned before that there are 15 kind of smaller, what we refer to as team rooms, but they're just little meeting spaces for up to 6 people. And we're going to split them in half. So there's going to be 8 of them that are totally open to the entire undergraduate student body to book online. They can book them self-service. And then we're going to open up the other 7 of them to kind of clubs and DSUs and any sort of organizational bookings as well. And so they'll be able to book the full 15, and the students will be able to book just 8. Then outside of that, in terms of other bookable spaces in the building, excluding the ballroom, we only really have 5 spaces. So the community kitchen and that meeting room are kind of to the side at the moment because they haven't been fully opened out and fully commissioned. But we have the 2 meeting rooms, 2420, 2440. Then we have the 3 meeting rooms in question on 3. And they're pretty much, well, along with the board meeting room, they're pretty much it. So the way it goes is that effectively undergraduate students can book 8 of the small team rooms. Then any clubs and organizations can book all the remaining space, which consists of a total of 15 team rooms, the 2 meeting rooms on 2, the 3 meeting rooms on 3, the board meeting room, and the ballroom. That's just a brief overview. If there's any specific question about the bookings, I can definitely answer. I just don't know how much you want me to get into.
Yeah, I'll let Jess, as you brought it up, do a direct response to this, specifically a question about the sub itself.
It was more of added on information about these guidelines. Is that okay? Okay, cool, thanks. So we have these spaces you're able to book these meeting spaces for reoccurring times up to an X amount of time per week, up to 3 weeks in advance for 2 hours per session. So these are still guidelines, these are still in the works, but there is feasibility and accessibility that you are able to book these on your own through the club portal. And then we'll go change that as well on the back end within the system. As for the rooms itself, of course, I want you folks to have access to these rooms, but if we're able to provide greater access to other folks who don't have the privilege of having their own faculty student union and smaller student unions who want to use this space sometimes as well, I think that would give great opportunity for everyone else, not just in SUS or SAS. If hopefully we get these space booking guidelines out soon, but we do need some time to, like, none of us have been even in the building yet just for a student body. So we still have yet to see the needs of people, the demands of these spaces, what we need in these rooms. And I think, like, I really urge, let's just take this first few months to get adjusted to the space, to get used to these spaces, to see what we need and all of that. I think we're rushing into this just a little bit, but I would love to help out to continue your campaign on having like bookable spaces, but not spaces that are permanent, that set for SAS or SAS.
Okay, thanks, Jess. And we're going to move back to the conversation about vibes, which is interesting to say in a meeting. But and I have Mohammed, Kayla, and Zaid listed for that one. And then unfortunately, I'm cutting that one off just because it's been going on and we have a long list. And I'm limiting you to 1 minute and I'm timing it on my phone. So please be very concise. I know everything you have to say is valuable, but I want to make sure that everyone has a chance to go ahead. So Mohammed, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be very brief in that case. I just wanted to respectfully disagree with what you said, Gabe, regarding the accessibility and how taking those rooms from bookings will make things less accessible rather than more. And actually, this has been emphasized by an earlier thing we said in a different motion, in the executive presentations, when you and Corbett were talking about catching up and talking to each other and discussing things that have occurred so that you can get back into your role. And how do you do that? By passing each other in the sub-building. And so that idea can be extended towards other students and other unions and other faculties and programs, that when they go through the sub-building, if we make it the centralized place for students, that they can pass through and communicate with each other more easily and more freely, thus a little bit decreasing the need for booking rooms and whatnot. A flow of information will make things much easier for everyone.
All right, you were perfectly on 1 minute. I don't know if you were timing yourself, but I'll move on to Kayla. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to address the point, Gabe, that you made about how there's a lack of bookable space around the school. And I kind of just wanted to address my own concerns about that, because WLLSU has had a very direct understanding of that. We have had to hold meetings at random times throughout semesters in library study spaces. So my concern is, and why I think that this is a good motion to put forward, if we have to continue with that same model and there's an off chance that myself and Wolsu won't be able to get a space in the sub-building for a meeting, that we eventually will be taking other spaces that are meant for other purposes, whereas the student union building is meant for student unions and clubs and meetings to occur, among other things. But if we have to go back to the library study rooms, what they're meant for studying, I could possibly be taking space from students who want that time to study, who are trying to meet to work on projects and presentations. So I think having that centralized space works better in that sense, and having it as a first resort for example, FAST and science students to go to, so they're not taking spaces from other parts of the school that are not meant for those meetings in that sense. That's my comment.
Thank you, Kayla. And we'll move on to Zaid for the last comment about the vibes.
Oh man, I always forget leave my mic on mute. Sorry, I totally forgot what that discussion was about there. It's been a while, so yeah, I'm good.
Okay, thank you so much, Zaid. And I'm gonna move on to Akam. Akam, I know that you had a comment a long time ago for a direct response, but I'll let you go ahead because it's been a little bit.
That's okay. I think Gabe has a direct response to what Kayla just said, if we want to do that before.
Oh yeah, sorry, I missed that in the chat. Gabe, you go ahead.
I'm sorry, Devin. I know that it's really confusing as someone who chairs all the time, all the direct responses. So I'm just noticing a common theme in this discussion around the reliability of knowing that you have a space specifically for meetings. And so there is an option for that we have on the table, which is keeping these spaces as bookable rooms, but at the start of each semester, allocating reoccurring bookings to these individual faculty student unions so that they have that reliability for the entire semester. So in that way, I think it still gives access to literally the hundreds of clubs that we have to use that space, for the thousands of students that we have to book that space, but also give reliability to those student unions who would like to have their meetings and to be able to engage with their membership in that way.
All right, thank you. And I have a couple direct responses to Gabe. You can go ahead, Zaid.
Thank you. So in regards to, I guess, the overall argument here is about reliable meeting space. Again, that's just one aspect. The other aspect, which of course this was really detailed in our briefing note and open letter from last term, was about having an actual space for student unions that's permanent there. So again, if it's something that's transient and can be booked out by I guess just students or clubs or whatever. Again, that's not some place that we can have a consistent a presence at. So, when it comes to creating, community center for science students, for art students, we comprise like probably half of the student population here at SFU. I don't know, maybe I'd have to go and check, but I think maybe even more. So really, like we would need to go back to address that piece as well about why do we need common room spaces versus having movable bookable spaces there. That's the other aspect that I think we're kind of glossing over. I can drop the briefing notes, which has a lot of the points that we all supported last term in the chat here as well. And it was a quick direct response, I guess, to what Jess said earlier was, I think she said something about students that don't have faculties. I mean, I'm sure that all students belong to faculties here. The FSUs that we do have, out of them, we're the only two FSUs aside from environment that comprise of or have constituents of multiple different departments there. So as we were talking about, we're unable to take space away from our departments there. Said that not all DSUs have an FSU. Well, the thing is then they likely have department space. So we can take health science, for example. Health science is a faculty and a DSU. They don't have any departments underneath them, but they do have a section, I believe it's Blesson Hall, which their faculty does own. So that is something that they would need to approach first before they would want to come here to get space in the sub as well.
I'm sorry, Zaid, you reached the 1 minute. I do apologize. I'm just trying to keep it on track, but thank you so much. And I had ACOM next. I believe you're a list, and I'll give you like longer ACOM because you were a list and a direct response. So I'll let you do it all in one.
That's okay. Thank you. I do think that a lot of people that spoke before me did put some of my thoughts out there already. Another thing, though, that I would like to mention is that FAS is the largest faculty at SFU. We do represent an insane amount of students. And a lot of you might think, oh, like there's also GSUs to represent those students. But something that one of our program managers, I think, mentioned that really stuck with me is that SAS represents undeclared students and first-year students that don't belong to a department. So it's not only about the bookable spaces that we'll be giving to DSUs and to ourselves for the events, for the engagement, but it's also to build that sense of community. And it's really about engaging with our student body that we're not able to do so. And I think part of that is actually why we have a reputation, unfortunately, as a commuter school. So I think this is more than just a bookable space. And I think that is part of why we put this motion forward to have a permanent space within the sub for our FSUs.
Okay, thanks you so much, ACOM. I believe, Damon, you had a direct response. If that's wrong, let me know.
No, it's correct.
Okay.
I not necessarily responding to Zay's point because I think Zay's got a pretty good point there. But I was thinking that I put it in the chat earlier too, but with how the chat's popping off, so it's probably got lost a little bit. Putting in like lockable storage space might be a compromise. So we put in storage space for these student unions, and we do like, you know, the booking that was brought up by Gabe, so that they have that time and the space that they need. And then that locked storage space, so they don't have to be concerned about people accessing their merch or their other things that they have in there. Then it's kind of like when the room's not being used, it can still be booked by students and other groups that need it and other clubs, because there are clubs under SFU as well that might need that space. But yeah, I think lockable storage could be part of a solution, part of a compromise for this. And that's my response.
Thanks, David. And looking here, it says that Jess says that there is definitely lockers for folks, which is awesome. And I assume that being lockers, that they would be lockable and everything. Matt, you have a direct response to Akom's point. If you could go ahead.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to mention that in terms of like, I want to note that, you know, for myself, like I'm not in opposition of students having space because I know how important it is. But with, as to Akom's point on like the size of FAS and also like, you know, folks who have signed on to this with the multiple departments and the size of this room, like with capacity, I believe John said it's 16 to 20. I think it's wise to think like long-term for these instances, because like when I'm thinking of it and the size of the faculties and the amount of meetings, even if this is a common room, like is this the most adequate space that you need for long-term community building for how much capacity that these faculties like intake? And also like, you know, moving forward, if this space is allocated, like this is going to be like that permanent space for that common room, you know? And then so what happens when, you know, you have meetings or common room spaces that are permanent, that is supposed to encompass all of these multiple departments, and then taking up also bookable space if there's conflicting meetings. Like there's going to be formal processes. Like I'm just thinking about this logistically, there's going to need to be formal processes for to encompass and hold capacity for the amount of departments that you're wanting to consider for these rooms that are like for 16 to 20 people. And that's just like logistically long-term thinking. So if anyone could answer that, I would, yeah, that's just what I had to say about that.
Thank you so much, Matt. And I just want to, I'll get to Sharik in a minute. I just wanted to go over the reason why I haven't, if I haven't called on you, it's because you're not a counselor or you have, like Sharik has stayed present. And so that's why I'm prioritizing counselors. And second of all, just on some past responses, it's been brought to my attention. If it's not a direct response, please list yourself and we'll get to you. I just, however, having so many different conversations going at once, I don't think is as productive as having a direct response to answer a question, and then listing your, and if you have a list, bring that up later. But I'll let Sharik go ahead because I know that you've listed for a while.
Just as a thing to respond to Matt, as to whether they're adequate spaces, again, if they're used as meeting rooms for the DSUs, generally those won't be very, like, no, they don't need to be rooms for 50 to 100 people. As another thing, so I said earlier, I went up to the sub yesterday and John can clarify this. In front of those rooms as well, there's a very large scale lounge space that is available to all students as well. And that can basically seat about 5 to 6 people as well. So there's more to it simply than it just being the size, because it acts as a central hub and it brings people into the proximity of the SFSS, which is something I think we can all relate to, in the fact that people maybe haven't viewed the SFSS or not been in close contact with them. And the one thing that this does is it brings people into the student union building and it brings them closer to the SFSS, and it overall just increases involvement.
All right, thank you.
Also, can I just add one last point, Devin?
Yeah, sure, you have 30 seconds.
Okay. As well, this isn't a problem of that it's just been going on since like just in the last year. It's been a problem going on for years. Once we put this motion forward, many SUS presidents reached out and they wrote formal statements showing their support for this as well, which I have added into the chat. So you can definitely take a look at that as to writing to why this is a very important motion for alumni who've graduated in our 3 to 4 years already gone.
All right, thank you for sharing that resource. And Zaid, I'll let you go with 1 minute for a direct response.
Thank you. So when it comes to, I guess, regards to, you know, the growth of the faculty and departments, with having this as a bookable space, at the same time, something that is ongoing with the campaign that we launched is for department student unions to be continuing to try and negotiate with their departments for their own common room spaces as well. So I can imagine that in the future, the need for bookings for this space will decrease as we continue this campaign and as we do win more common room spaces for departments. So that is something else that we do need to be considering there as well. And also, just for everyone, I did drop in the chat our common room space letter that we wrote last term. If you do open it, maybe later, if I can get around on the list again, I'll read out some of the excerpts from it.
All right, thank you so much, Zayden. Thank you for sharing that in the chat. I know because they had a couple of direct responses. I'll let Katya go on a strict 2-minute level just because you're not a counselor, and you can go ahead and I'll put that 2-minute limit on.
Oh, okay. Is this a list or direct response?
Whatever you want it to be.
Oh, okay. Hi, my name is Katya. I'm one of the co-presidents of SAS. I want to speak in support of this motion and support what ACOM, our SFSS counselor, also said. As someone who's volunteered in FAS and worked with DSUs and FSUs over the last 3 years, the space issue is something that I believe is a huge problem for DSUs. I've been at meetings where we had to be in Saywell or Blesson Hall just because the room that we usually used was taken by a professor to grade papers, which understandably, of course, they get priority. I've had meetings on the table outside of Arts Central in the AQ with students going to classes around us. I've had to plan events in like the seating area under Images or near Renaissance, or really all around campus. These are all things that do interfere with the abilities of DSUs to be able to hold meetings and plan events, as well as store things, since there is a lack of permanent space, which of course also makes it difficult to interact with our membership, since our meetings are open to the general public, as I'm assuming a lot of DSU meetings are, but it is really hard for students to come to those meetings, especially when we don't have a guarantee that we'll be able to host our meetings at the location that we planned. Another reason why the faculty common space is so important is that we do hope it will increase the engagement among students at SFU and create more of a sense of community. SFU is definitely known as a commuter campus. That's really no secret. As part of my job at SFU, I actually do speak to alumni, and this is a trend that arises whenever they talk about their experiences and that they don't feel connected to SFU because they didn't get the chance to interact with students, especially with students from their faculty and department. We don't know the students who go to our classes with us. It's really hard to build connections during lectures or tutorials. So as a faculty student union, one of the aspects that's unique to us is that we do host students who are undeclared, and therefore they don't have membership in the departmental student unions. So with the common room, we really hope to have give FAST students a space to interact with one another and hopefully increase engagement, which I think is—
Yeah, Katya, sorry, I didn't mean for you to hear the alarm that I just hung up. But thank you so much. And we're going to move back to the last list. I put in the chat because I think it's a good point for the time. I have a list here, and we are going to end with Helen. So that has about 8 people on the list. So I'm going to strict 2-minute. Mohammed. Okay, I'll see if we have time at the end too, because I'm also trying to limit and give everyone an opportunity to speak. And there's a couple people on the list who haven't spoken at all. So I just want to give that priority. Jess, you had a direct response and a list. So if you want to combine them into one, that would be lovely.
The only thing I remember is the direct response, I'll just say it now, is that some DSUs and SAS already have their own common rooms. So they still have access to storage and meeting spaces like ESU, philosophy, and other spaces as well on campus. They also have access to Art Central and book those rooms within communicating with staff to those boardrooms within Art Central. And they also have space to book one of the rooms at level 6,000 when they do their Arts Central meetings and their SAS meetings as well. So those are always options. There's many rooms for SAS to do that, I highly believe. Level 6,000 is quite far, yes, but also it's right above Arts Central inside the AQ where a lot of the arts classes are held.
All right, thank you so much, Jess. And Nancy, I believe you had a list as well.
Hi there, thanks. I am one of the member services coordinators, and I think we should wait for the sub to open first. Allow the membership of 25,000 plus students to have access to the building, to get to know it, to get the feel for it. once the sub has been open for a period of time, that, you know, a review could be done. It is in the best interest of the membership to see how rooms are used, what types of events, activities, and the rooms are used for. There are not many large capacity rooms, as you guys can tell. So removing any of them and allowing DSUs to take them, that takes it away from some of the large clubs and DSUs that have events. And right now, or in the past, there are over 200 clubs. We reached over 300 at times. So trying to find rooms to book their events, it makes it really difficult. So, I mean, I do understand that, you know, the DSUs would like, you know, a room. I suggest maybe that the Student Society and the DSUs could look at something else, possibly another area, like the undergrounds or something. But right now, because the sub is new, and I believe that the students and membership are going to want to use this building. I mean, we've gotten requests right now, and we're not even open yet. So I just think people should really be patient and wait. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Nancy. And looking that there's one direct response to that, Mohammed, you go ahead on a strict 1 minute limit.
Yeah, sure. I actually do not agree with that statement in any capacity. I'm not gonna lie. It shouldn't be just up to, okay, we'll wait, we'll see. We can't just wait for these types of situations. We need to adapt to them quickly. We'll have even more pressure at the time. Let's say we do vote on this later, we'll have more pressure. We'll hurdle students who want to go into the building, who want to communicate there, who want to have meetings by us, moving furniture, doing painting, applying decals. That'll take weeks, and it'll take time, and it'll be constricting on the students even more. It'll cause more hurdles than it will benefits. And that's why we should have actually talked about this beforehand. We are way too late. We are surprisingly late on this. We should have discussed this before. We should have occupied those spaces before. We should have discussed the finances of all of this before. We are so behind. It is unfathomable.
I'm sorry, Mohammed, I have to cut you off there. Apologies. I am going to say, I'm sorry, Zaid, you've done quite a few direct responses, so I'm going to give the last one for this topic to ACOM, because ACOM's only talked, I believe, once or twice. And I'm going to now set, unless it's a direct question to you, direct responses to 2 and lists to, obviously, no more on the list. Everyone on the list hasn't spoken yet. But if a question is obviously direct to you, then we can do that. But ACOM, go.
Yes, I'll also, again, try and be as quick as I possibly can. So I think both Jess and Nancy raised valid points, and I would like to acknowledge that and especially appreciate that. But I do also want to note that a lot of those spaces that Jess mentioned are not prioritized for DSUs. So either we have to essentially compete with either the staff that are at Art Central, or we have to compete, say, like, even if we do open up these bookable spaces and we give priority to clubs within the SFU or within the SFSS, sorry, we're going to have to compete with clubs. There's not a space, I think, that a lot of DSUs have that is being prioritized for DSUs. And I think that's been one of the biggest things that we've struggled with. And another thing, I do completely understand, I think, where Nancy's coming from. I know that as a student, I'm extremely excited for the sub to be open. And I was before I ever joined a student
I'm
union.
sorry, ACOM, I do have to cut you off there if you just want to finish your point.
Yes, I was just going to say that I think it would be unfair to open up the sub and open up these spaces to students, and then after that tell them that they've been restricted. I think that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ACOM. And we're going to move back to the list. And I actually had a question I listed myself. Question kind of slash statement, and it's, I think, about what kind of is being discussed. But as we all know, as well, they might not have representation at council, there's quite a few other faculties at SFU. And my fear is that while I am part of the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, other students in education or in communications and art and stuff might not feel comfortable using these spaces because they're like, oh, well, I'm not in that faculty. And I can speak from my experience not being involved in any type of student government or not wanting to use space because I felt like, oh, as I'm not declared, can I use that space? And so I guess my question is to how, in doing this, how can we make sure it's equitable? How can we make sure that students in education don't feel, okay, now we have no bookable spaces. Why don't we have a common room to make friends? And so I guess that's my concern. It's not actually as equitable as it's being made out to sound, but if anyone has a response to that, I'd love to get more information. And Zaid, you do, so go ahead, Zaid.
Thank you, Devin. Yeah, I'd love to get into this here. So you brought up the faculties. Again, we did address this earlier. When it comes to the different faculties that exist, besides Faculty of Applied Science, which currently doesn't have any representation, but they all of them do have their own common room spaces. So that's slightly irrelevant for us. We have the Faculty of Environment, who is currently looking to get alternate space within their part of the of SFU there. And then if we go to education has their own wing as well. So part of the whole point of this common room space campaign is then for education, which does not have any departments that it has to compete with within its own wing of SFU, they should be able to go then, the Education Student Union, and you know, with the help of our execs, of course, and the rest of council, lobby to get their own common room space within their own faculty. So what else do we have? We have health science. We covered them earlier. They do not have a department. They have Blesson Hall there. After contacting and working with their faculty, you know, if that is the case that they don't have any kind of space that they can get there, then we look at alternate options. What else is there? Business has their own, I don't even know if BD, do they have a student union? They have their whole area in West Mall Center as well to explore. They're one DSU or FSU for all of their groups, so they have no competition as well. We consist of multiple different DSUs underneath us. SUS has something like 15 different DSUs within our science, what is it, SHRUM kind of area there. And all the space has been split up among the different departments. We have no space that we can go and look for, whereas a lot of the other faculties haven't explored their options. So that's definitely something that I really do want to point out here. And also just to note, we are at 8:20 here. We should probably be calling the questions soon or calling to extend the agenda. We have 2 other motions that we need to consider, and we have honestly exhausted discussion.
Yeah, I totally agree. Right now I'm going to suspend direct responses. There is a couple of other people on the list I want to limit to 1 minute to go, because I just feel like they've been waiting and they haven't spoken yet. And as well as I feel we've exhausted discussion, not everyone on council has had the ability to speak, and I don't necessarily think, I think that they should, but after that, I'd be happy to call a vote. And on that note, Aaliyah, you have a minute starting now.
Okay, let's see how fast I can talk. So I had the chance to touch base with my DSU and with multiple SAS execs on different occasions over the last week or so. And I've noticed that in the discussions that I've had with different SAS execs, because as we are on a FAST DSU, I thought my point of contact would be SAS execs. I've received different points of information from each and every one of them. And at the DSU meeting, I was told that the motion would be focusing on not getting concrete space today, but we'll be talking about starting a conversation around obtaining concrete space. Earlier in the meeting, the SAS Council rep mentioned semesterly space. And I was told that I was under the understanding that as of yesterday, the DSU meeting, yesterday, that this would be bookable space, but on a DSU scale. After learning in this meeting that there are only 5 rooms available, I think that will even, if anything, create more competition for the space, because there are hundreds of clubs and thousands of SFU students, as we all know, and thousands of students who might want to use this space regardless of faculty affiliation. And as people have mentioned earlier, other faculties might face the same issues that SAS and SUS are, and under this precedent that we might be setting, would want to maybe do the same thing in the future. And there's only, at this point, if SAS and SUS were to get space, 3 rooms left. I would really love to see this motion as a part of our wider Students Deserve Space campaign. So as of right now, ISSA is not super clear on what the motion would be. We would love for maybe the vote to be pushed off, but as of right now, we're not super sure or feeling super confident in the motion in the way that it stands.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry, I know that you were talking really fast when he cut you off, but Corbett, please go ahead.
Thanks, and I'll try to be fast because I have a minute. So my perspective is I know full well how fundamental common rooms are for student unions. I was president of the Constituency Student Society. I know how integral it is to building the community there. But I also think it's incredibly important for student unions to be in throughout SFU, not just the student union building. The reason being, partially SFU has been using the sub as an excuse to be able to evict student unions to say, hey, there's space there, just go get space in the sub. We need to push back on that by having a full push out of everyone, not just the permanent students, but faculty students as well, for them all to get space in SFU. It's space that you are paying for as with your tuition, just like you're paying for the sub. It's your space too, and SFU should be giving you space and like useful space for all of you to help build up your communities there. Additionally, and the thing too is SFU, they say they don't have the space, but the thing is they're horrible at utilizing their space. If anyone who's lived on campus or been here at night walks past West Mall and sees how empty those rooms are, 5th floor AQ, other areas that are heavy, and 3rd floor AQ and stuff, they have rooms, they don't do a lot of night classes. So these rooms are just basically empty almost all the time. You can actually look up at the facilities website and to look at the usage rates on these rooms. And there is so much space that is just not being used by SFU that we need to push back on. We could literally ask to take over those spaces so they can shrink their stuff and actually to get space for student unions. Like, there is space. We just need to unite and push for it, and push for everyone to push for it. And don't let SFU push us back into the sub only.
Okay, thank you, Corbett. And I am going to let, even though I suspended them, I am going to let ACOM do a direct response specifically to the point made by Leah about what the motion pertains to. So not other points made, but specifically to what the motion pertains to and what the motion is suggesting. And so you can go ahead, ACOM.
Just to clarify, I was at that DSU meeting and I did speak at that DSU meeting. I'm genuinely sorry if we haven't been clear in our organization. I do completely understand that a lot of us, and even in this council term, have faced issues with the timing of motions. However, we did our absolute best to talk to DSUs about this motion way before we brought it to council. And we will continue to do so, especially when it pertains to how that space is going to be used. And especially with the point of how we didn't know that it would be better for us to bring to council specific meeting or specific spaces within the student union building until we were told by John yesterday. So we did the best that we absolutely could by amending that into the new motion and addressing that again. And I think Sharik would be able to speak to that because he was in that meeting with John. But as best as I know, we've done our absolute best to, and we haven't not only spoken to DSUs on this, but we will continue to speak to DSUs on this to address their needs the best that we possibly can.
Okay, thank you, ACOM. I'm sorry, Sharik, for a time thing, you can't respond to that. If you'd like to put something in the chat, I will allow that. But I'm going to move on to right on the left on the list, we have Matt, Evan, and Helen. I'm going to let them go with no direct response unless it's a question, and we will go ahead from there. So to a vote. So Matt, go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I think from what has been considered and what people have discussed already, like I think just really thinking about this very clearly and like a logistical point of view. The sub hasn't been opened. It's going to be open on the 23rd. And from what I've heard from folks, like, you know, even though folks have talked to their DSUs, we don't know logistically how this will work to accommodate all of these faculties to fit in a room, like a common room for 16 to 20 people, especially like with COVID. So that's also going to add a number of barriers in terms of booking and space and capacity. And long term, if this motion passes, I would really strongly consider just to ensure that, you know, with regards to what we've discussed already, is that this space will be allocated and we do not know the direction or the capacity that this will impact the faculties moving forward. So I think it's just really important for us to consider that. I would also, you know, I would also want to commit the motion to the executive committee and task executive committee to work alongside the author of the motion, Zaid, and SAS and SUS presidents and executives and the SFSS building manager to identify and recommend to council various options for viable common room spaces at the next regular scheduled council meeting. Just due to the precarious situation, like we don't even know what this will look like in the fall or long term. And also for our due diligence, like as council, we need to take into consideration all of our constituents, of all of our members, and also how they want to utilize the space.
Sorry, Matt, I have to cut you off there, but I do have a question for you. Are you motioning to delay this amendment or just suggesting that? I just want to clarify.
Yeah, I would move to postpone.
Okay, cool. Shriek, before we do that, what's your point of information?
This one I can just add a clarification, right? Okay. Just as a thing, so when we spoke to John yesterday, the rooms that we specifically put in the motions are the two specific rooms that he also pointed out to us in particular and said these were two good rooms that would fit the purposes that we were looking for. So just as a thing for council to consider, he suggested those rooms to us, and I'm sure if he's still here, he said that anything would be possible with those rooms as well.
Okay, I'll let John go, and then we have to move back to Matt's motion to postpone.
Yeah, so, oh, sorry, just for clarity on that point, so the two rooms that were proposed previously were 2420 and 2440. And I just brought the guys up to speed to let them know that those rooms have the video conferencing and that a lot of research and time went into making those rooms video conferencing rooms specifically because of like light and sound and glass and kind of location in the building. So the other two rooms were pointed out as similar rooms with a similar size and similar specification. So it's not that they're like the best to be a common room, it's just that they're the most similar to the two that were requested originally.
Okay, thank you so much. And we're moving back to the motion submitted by Matt. So Matt is motioning to postpone this to a later meeting for more information. Can I get a seconder for that, please?
Just seconds.
Just seconds, awesome. And so I think we're gonna have to do this with a vote or seek, I don't think we're able to seek unanimous consent. So Gabe, do you wanna handle that?
Sure, I can. I just would, before we actually put the motion to postpone to a vote, I would just like to move to extend the meeting to 9 p.m. just so we have time to move through voting. So I'm moving to extend the meeting to 9 p.m. Would someone like to second?
I'll second.
And Evan seconds. I don't know if we're going to take that entire time, but I would just like to have that buffer. Okay, so we have, also just to clarify, Devin, you have passed the chair back to me for this period of time.
Yes, I think you have the list on paper in front of you, so
Great. So we'll put the question to a vote on extending the meeting to 9 p.m. and I'll seek unanimous consent on this. All those in favor? Okay, so that's carried. And so the meeting has been extended to 9 p.m. And we are currently on a motion to postpone. And I'm going to put this to a vote as well. So I am almost positive that this is going to be contested. So we're going to put it to a roll call vote. And I will ask, please, everyone to, so I'm just, as a clarifying question, the motion that was put forward was to postpone to the next meeting to gather more information and for recommendations and options to be brought back.
I believe so, yes. And I would just like to clarify, I believe that is the meeting on the 25th, as the other meeting is a special meeting, one on the 18th. So he postponed to the meeting on August 25th.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Devin. So we'll put this to a vote. And I will call on each counselor by position. And when I call on you, please be ready to cast your vote. And please be ready to unmute your mic just so we can move through this quickly. So we'll start with archaeology on the vote to postpone the motion.
Yes.
Bachelor of Environment.
No.
Behavioral Neuroscience.
Votes in favor.
Biology.
Votes in favor.
BPK. BPK, are you present?
She had to leave early.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Chemistry.
In favor?
About that. Cognitive science, or no, sorry, communications.
Against?
Computing science.
No.
Economics.
Against?
Education.
In favor?
Engineering science.
Against?
English.
Against?
Environmental science.
In favor?
Film.
In favor?
French. GSWS.
Sorry, in favor.
Thank you. Geography.
Abstain?
Health science.
In favor?
History.
Against.
IAT.
Against?
Labor studies.
In favor?
Linguistics.
In favor?
Math.
Math is against.
Megatronics.
In favor?
MBB.
Against?
Operations research.
Against?
Philosophy.
Against?
Physics.
Against?
Political science.
Against?
Psychology.
In favor?
Science Undergrad Society.
Against.
SAS.
Against.
Software systems.
Against?
Statistics. Statistics. Sustainable energy.
Against?
Theater. Theater. World Lit.
Against?
SOCA. SOCA, are you present? Women's Center Collective.
In favor?
Student Athlete Advisory Committee. SAC, are you present?
For.
Sorry, did you say 4?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The president votes in favor. VP Internal and Organizational Development.
In favor. Also, I think Soka just logged back in. I just let him in.
Oh, okay. Soka, can you hear me? Linda? Oh, okay, cool.
Aye, in favor. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Soka's in favor. VP Finance and Services.
In favor?
VP University and Academic Affairs.
In favor?
VP External and Community Affairs. VPX.
In favor?
VP Events and Student Affairs.
In favor?
Is there anyone who did not cast a vote?
Data science did not cast a vote.
All right, data science, how do you cast your vote?
Against, please.
Okay, was there anyone else? Okay, let me tally the votes and then I'll announce the result of this motion.
Oh, Devin said in the chat that alternates can vote, and I don't think the ISSA voted.
Oh, okay. Oh, my apologies. I must have missed you. ISSA, how do you cast your vote?
The ISSA is in favor.
Thank you. Okay, so on this vote, the yeses are 23, the noes are 20, and there is 1 abstention. So the motion to postpone is carried. Okay. Is there appetite to continue on with the remaining motions, or are we to postpone these to the next meeting as well? Or rather, it looks like these motions are kind of tied to the full return. I don't know, Serena, you submitted the next 2 motions. Would you rather consider them at the next meeting or tonight?
Sorry, can you remind me of them? One of them was the
A call for
letter
contract
from
cheating. A call for contract cheating legislation and accessible course practices campaign letter.
Kashish isn't here, so honestly, I'm not sure. Maybe Shashank, what do you think about the accessible course practices one? Should we delay it or keep it for this meeting?
It'll take 5 to 10 minutes tops, so I feel like we can finish it this meeting.
Yeah, I think the same about the contract cheating one. It shouldn't take too long.
Sure. So let's consider 9.2, and I'll read the motion. This is a motion titled "A Call for Contract Cheating Legislation." This was submitted by VP University and Academic Affairs, Serena Baines, and there is an attachment titled "Draft Letter to Ministry Revised." And so the motion reads, whereas the BC Academic Integrity Network has drafted a letter to Tony Lugren, Executive Lead of Governance, Legislation, and Corporate Planning, Division of Ministry of Advanced Education and Skills Training, to urge a legal response to the growing problem of contract cheating in BC. Whereas contract cheating is the outsourcing of student work to third parties, whereas these third parties often take advantage of vulnerable students and even threaten students. Whereas legislation would help to put contract cheating operations out of business in BC, be it resolved that the SFSS Council sign onto said draft letter. Serena, would you like to move the motion as the author?
Yes, please.
All right, is there a seconder?
Software systems.
Software systems, Shashank, thank you. And Serena, you have the floor as the author and the mover of the motion.
Perfect. Thank you, Gabe. I'll try to be really quick since we are running late. So this is basically a letter I hope folks got to read. It's about contract cheating legislation. This came to SCOOS first, which was the Senate Committee on Undergraduate Studies, about contract cheating becoming an increasing problem at SFU and in BC in general because there's no legislation against it. It's particularly predatory to international students who may think that they're getting help for an exam or just getting some editing for an essay. And it turns out that it's actually a predatory company that's looking to tie students into something that's illegal and will be considered plagiarism and could potentially get them kicked out of their post-secondary institution. So what happens is a student would request such services. And then because of a lack of legislation, these companies exist that can provide those services. And if a student says, oh, I didn't know this was a bad thing, and tries to get out, there have been cases where companies blackmail students and say, oh, you can't get out of the situation because of da-da-da-da. There's also situations where students may know about what these companies are doing and still do it anyways. I personally don't believe that all students are out there to cheat and screw up the curve for all their classmates. But I'm more concerned about the impact on students who are unknowingly approaching these services, and hoping that some legislation would help these companies go out of business. There was a couple examples in the letter, including New Zealand, Australia, a particular some states in the US as well. But yes, that's the TLDR basically.
Thank you, Serena, for the explanation on the motion. And I see there's a direct response from Abby, but I am mandated to ask if counselors would like to speak to the motion first. Anything? All right, Abby, you have the floor. Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
Abby, Senator Parmar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm on SCOOS as well as with Serena, so this was discussed during one of our subcommittee meetings, and this is something I'm particularly passionate about. From the BD School of Business as well, I would talk with Kamal Masri, our undergrad chair, and this is something I've been working with the BD School of Business specifically to target, and we've been working on cases trying to lure out contract cheaters, and I think it's just disgusting, the fact that students get desperate enough where they're losing tens of thousands of dollars to these contract cheating companies because you get caught once and your education is so important to you. It's crucial to get a job in this world. And contract cheating companies either extort you or threaten to report you to your university. It's such a terrible situation. I never want to see a student get caught in that. Forget it, SFU, anywhere ever. So I'm 100% in favor of this. I hate scammers in general, and this just hits a little bit closer to home.
Thank you, Abby. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion on the floor for consideration? Okay, so seeing no discussion left, we will put the question to a vote. All those in favor of the motion on a call for contract cheating legislation, seeking unanimous consent based on the discussion we had. If you'd like to vote against or abstain, use the Zoom raise hand feature. Okay, this is carried unanimously. Move to 9.3, Accessible Course Practices Campaign Letter. This was submitted by VP University and Academic Affairs, Serena Baines, and there is an attachment titled Accessible Course Practices Campaign Letter. Whereas the Accessible Course Practices Working Group was established at the July 28th, 2021 Council meeting, whereas the Accessible Course Practices Working Group has drafted a letter detailing the campaign and its demands. Whereas the University and Academic Affairs has provided feedback on the letter, be it resolved that the SFSS Council approves and signs onto the draft letter. Be it further resolved that SFSS councillors who vote in favor of this motion sign onto the letter as individuals and as representatives of their respective student groups. And lastly, be it further resolved that councillors share the letter to their student group members on social media. Is there a mover? Or Serena, would you like to move?
Yes, I'll move.
Serena moves. Is there a seconder?
Shashank.
Shashank. Serena, you have the floor.
Thank you. We had actually spoken about potentially, Shashank, if you wanted to speak to it, but I can speak to it as well. It's up to you.
Yeah, sure. I can go. Now, just as an attachment for the people in chat, there is the link to the letter. It's in Google Docs. I'll keep it quick, TLDR. On top of the motion, let me just run you guys through what we have in the letter. What we strive to achieve is basically a standardized way of teaching that SFU is going to be providing lectures, not only in the next semester, but even in the upcoming semesters. We are striving to make recorded lectures as a norm, just not as something that people do during a pandemic, which is a little odd. Plus, looking at the new Delta variant and let's say the next upcoming variants that are going to be hitting us with COVID, this is going to be extremely helpful. While SFU has ended up making a plan about return to campus, it seems very sophisticated, it seems very good. They haven't said anything specific about courses and the way that courses are going to be handled and the number of people sitting in classrooms, etc., and stuff like that. Now, one extra reason that we want lectures to actually be recorded is students that are working may or may not be able to attend specific lectures because of their busy schedules, or students who also fall sick during the semesters, which will cause in them falling behind in courses and academic material. And we as a working group and as students do not have the power to standardize recording lectures, unfortunately. So what we are doing is trying to convince people to help technically. By technically, I mean by providing technological support for like webcams, streaming supplies, or recording supplies in the lectures. Even if it's just audio recording, that's still better than nothing. And the second thing that, if possible, just pushing them a little bit more is assigning professors who are not tech savvy person who can help out during lectures for recording or streaming, and ensuring that the lectures are available online after they have taken place asynchronously for everybody to view. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for that explanation. And I think Ben is the first on the list.
I'd like to amend the motion by striking in the third be it resolved clause counselors and replacing with counselors who vote in favor.
So you're, just to confirm, you're adding, so the motion, the third be it resolved clause would read, be it resolved that counselors who vote in favor of this motion share the letter da-da-da-da-da.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that amendment? Is there a seconder?
Jeremy, I seconds.
Jeremy seconds. Ben, did you want to explain this amendment?
Yeah, basically just I don't think it's right to force counselors or to seemingly force counselors who want to vote against this motion to share it, because I don't know, that just wouldn't make much sense to me.
Thank you. Did anyone else want to speak to the amendment? Okay, we'll put the amendment to a vote then. All those in favor of the amendment, and I'll seek unanimous consent on this one. If you would like to vote against or abstain, please use the Zoom raise hand feature to indicate that to me. Okay, so that is carried unanimously, and we'll move back to the main motion. And it appears Riley is on the list.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to make sure everyone can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I went ahead and I actually had a Zoom meeting with the head of mechatronics faculty. And so we just discussed different options. And so he said that actually a lot of professors are already going to offer recorded lectures from last year to the majority of MSc courses. Like they were already planning on doing that for the fall because they understand that it's going to be a hard transition from going from online straight to in-person 100%. So they're actually meeting tomorrow, if my memory serves correct, to discuss this further. And he said that every professor in MSc is going to let the students know within the first week how they're going to deliver the course. So it's going to give us ample time to choose whether or not we want to take the course. He said that the only thing that can't be recorded for obvious reasons are exams and quizzes, because he wants to cut down on the amount of cheating or possible cheating that's happening during exams. So I just wanted to let everyone know that that's what MSc is planning to do. So if when you discuss with people and your faculties, you can say, look, this is what mechatronics is doing to prepare for this. So.
Thank you, Riley. And Serena, you're up next.
Thanks, Gabe. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I believe the working group also created a Google form to share to faculty, or like ask your faculty to share to their faculty members, to ask professors like whether they're choosing not to record or whether they are, like, what's their reasoning behind it, so that folks can get a better understanding of where profs are at and where we can potentially meet them halfway or persuade them, or if they're fully on our side, that's great too. Another thing is, I feel like a common retort, I guess, from professors is that confidentiality or copyright and those kinds of things prevent recording lectures. I think they mentioned like student privacy as well, but I do want to mention for folks, if you hear that argument, it's not exactly accurate, because anyone with accommodations can record any lecture, any tutorial, any lab that they need. So that's not necessarily true, but that's something I've heard a lot recently. So I just wanted to bring that up too.
Thanks, Serena. Damon, what's your direct response in relation to?
Yeah, it's in relation to what Serena just brought up about the Google Form.
Perfect, go ahead.
So I sent it to my department head and he responded today. And he's like generally like in favor of what we're going for here, like the goal. But he doesn't necessarily, or from what I understood in the email, does not necessarily feel comfortable sending that out to the faculty members, having the information they put sent to a group of students they don't know. And from the email, I wasn't even necessarily sure that he understood what the SFSS was generally. So I think that might also be a barrier, is not necessarily that professors are against it, but more so that they're not 100% with sending out their information or their ideas or their plans to people they don't really know and that there's no face to, or like that they wouldn't recognize. Like generally he said he was like, they're encouraging it, but they're not forcing it. And they might make their own like Google form similar to ours and release that data later on. But yeah, that's the response I got.
Thank you, Damon. Shashank, you have a direct response?
Yeah, actually, he answered the direct response I had with the last sentence he said about their own Google form. Now, in addition to that, I just want to know, by students they don't know, or by students whose faces they have not seen, is this specific to students who are not part of the archaeology department? Or is this something just like students they haven't taught before? If I can go into a little bit of detail, because personally, I don't think we care about what specific professors are doing. We just want to gather enough data on how many are for or are against.
I honestly could not like give you 100% confidence response, because while he did like answer my questions and like the stuff that I sent, I think his interpretation of what the SFSS was a little skewed. But I think it had to do with just the faculty sending out information to people that they don't necessarily know, or to a society that they don't necessarily get. It wasn't like well defined what it was, the particular reasons. But he said like taking into this, yeah, within a 95% confidence interval. I'm taking my first statistics course this year. I got the joke. But yeah, like I can't give you a promising response. Like I think it's just he doesn't want the faculty sending out, or not that he doesn't want to, but doesn't think the faculty would be comfortable just putting all this information out there without knowing who's using it, who has it, who's looking at it, what's the intent, what's the purpose. Very academic kind of questions here, or academic, I don't know, ethics department kind of questions.
Ben, you're up next.
This is just a question or concern that several members of my DSU's execs have shared. Could you provide some citation for the claim you make in point 1, as you don't seem to provide any?
I don't know if anyone can respond to that.
Let me give the doc a look, 1 second.
In the meantime, Devin, did you want to go ahead?
It's more of a point of order. It's 2 minutes to 9. So I don't know if we wanted to call for a vote or if we wanted to just wait for this direct response and then call for a vote or to extend the meeting.
I think we can likely finish up relatively quickly here. Ben, your question was around needing citation.
Yeah, I'm just curious about a source for that claim.
Okay. Would you be okay with, Shashank, would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, sorry. Personally, I'm trying to go through my website history. I can't really find the links because you guys don't want to see that. Anyway, with that being said, when it comes to the return to campus plan, I think all of us have gone to the SFU's website and saw the 4-step plan that SFU has thrown out on their website. Nothing has anything specific to do with courses. Plus, the second thing, a couple of professors have voiced their opinion and voiced their concerns about returning to campus in person. It was all over the news as well. And those professors have stated, I do not have the citations for this because this was on a news article that I read. However, I do remember that those professors have stated that SFU plans on stuffing 300 students into a 300-person room. And that is one more thing that we tried to incorporate in this point. I do agree that we need better citations, and I will make sure we look into that. Thank you for bringing that up. Oh, one more thing. The third wave of COVID, we were referring to the Delta variant that is present right now. Yeah. I hope that clears out sources.
Okay. Well, I'm seeing that it's 9 and there is no more folks on the speakers list. So I'm going to call the question and we're going to move to a vote. And so I will ask, I'll put the question to a vote. All those in favor of the motion titled Accessible Course Practices campaign letter, seeking unanimous consent, and if you would like to dissent, vote against or abstain, please use the Zoom raise hand feature. And it looks like we have one hand up. And so we will move to a roll call vote on this vote. So please indicate your vote when I call on your name, on your position. So ARC.
In favor.
Bachelor of Environment. Behavioral Neuroscience.
In favor.
Biology.
In favor.
Chemistry.
In favor.
Communications. Computing science. Data science.
In favor.
Economics.
In favor.
Education.
In favor.
Engineering science.
In favor.
English.
In favor.
Environmental science.
In favor.
Film Student Union. GSWS.
In favor.
Geography.
In favor.
Health science. History. IAT.
In favor.
ISSA, labor studies, linguistics, mathematics.
Given the current state of the letter, mathematics votes against.
And megatronics, MBB,
In favor.
operations research,
In favor.
philosophy, physics,
In favor.
political science, psychology,
In favor.
sus, pass,
In favor.
sociology. Oh, sorry, they're not here. Software systems,
In favor?
sustainable energy, world lit,
In favor.
theater, SOCA,
In favor.
Women's Center Collective,
In favor.
SAC,
In favor.
the president votes in favor, VP Internal,
In favor.
VP Finance,
In favor.
VP University, VP University,
In favor, sorry.
VP Event External,
In favor.
VP Events.
In favor.
Okay, so let me just tally that up. It did pass. I just need to count the yes votes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So on this vote, the yes votes are 29 and the noes are 1. And so the motion is carried. With that, I would like to move to postpone the remaining discussion items to the following council meeting on August 25th. Can I get a seconder?
Data science seconds.
Data science seconds. We'll put this question to a vote on postponing the remaining discussion items. All those in favor, seeking unanimous consent. All right, this motion is carried, and we'll just move into notice of motion, which is 12.1. And just as following our processes, this motion is being brought forward to a following council meeting as establishing a new policy, and we need to give 2 weeks notice of motion for that. Okay, so in terms of announcements, just a reminder that we have a council meeting on August 25th. It is not on the agenda, but we do have one on the 18th as well, and that is a special council meeting called for the purposes of discussing an in-camera discussion item. I am reporting to council that the counselor for the Science Undergrad Society, Zaid Lari, is on a leave of absence from August 11th to all right. I'm unsure the length of your leave of absence, Zaid, but Zaid is on a leave of absence and it has been approved. And the VP Equity and Sustainability is on a leave of absence due to personal family circumstances from the 9th to the 23rd. We'll move into adjournment. Be it resolved to adjourn the meeting at 9:07 p.m. Is there a mover?
Software
Devin moved.
systems.
Devin moves. Shashank, would you like to second?
Yep.
All right, Shashank seconds. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent? And this is carried unanimously. Thanks everyone for today's meeting. And I hope that everyone is taking care of themselves during finals. And I hope that everyone can get some sleep and take care of yourselves.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.